This is your news bulletin from Power 102 Digital. It is Tuesday, the 1st of October, 2024. Good morning, Trinidad and Tobago. This is news to 6 a.m. on News Power Digital. Finance Minister Colm Imber yesterday delivered a budget package with salary increases and other sweeteners for public servants in an overall $59.7 billion package. The 2025 budget was based on an oil price of US $77.80 and natural gas price of $3.59 per MMBTU. Projected revenue stands at $54.224 billion and expenditure at $59.741 billion. There will be a budget deficit of $5.517 billion. The top allocation went to education and training with $7.51 billion, including a special purposes allocation for urgent school repairs. Health was second with $7.57 billion, national security third with $6.113 billion. Those were followed by public utilities at $3.33 billion, infrastructure $1.86 billion, rural development $1.77 billion, transport $1.41 billion, agriculture $1.18 billion, and housing $750 million. The Tobago House of Assembly has been granted $2.599 billion for fiscal 2025, with $2.376 billion for recurrent expenditure and $205 million for development programs. Expenditure at $18 million for the unemployment relief program and $9.2 million for CPEP in Tobago. According to Minister Imber, the total allocation for the THA in 2025 fiscal represents an increase of $22.756 million over the allocation of $2.576 billion in fiscal 2024, representing 4.35% of the national budget. There had been no increases announced for electricity rates, water rates, or the cost of fuel at the pump. Minister Imber also announced a 5% wage increase for public servants, $2 minimum wage hike for public servants from November. The increase will benefit 5,100 workers at MTS, 6,900 workers at CPEP, and 6,200 in URP, among other public sector workers who are currently earning a minimum wage. VAT refunds are coming, tax and NIS amnesties, and 3 entities shortlisted as bidding for the Guaracara refinery were included in a package dubbed an election budget by some and a sweetener budget by some others. Imber gave longer than usual presentation with 5 hours and 19 minutes starting at 1:35 and ending just before 7 p.m., during which he positively detailed government's achievements in sectors over this past term. In responses, the American Chamber of Trinidad and Tobago said it appreciates Minister of Finance's ongoing attempts to craft a budget that strives to balance economic revitalization and challenges of prolonged reduced revenues while ensuring the preservation of adequate social safety nets and protections. AmCham says it's encouraged by the focus for enhanced training for the TNT Police Service, adding, "This is an area where there are opportunities for collaboration with the private sector, and it stands ready to assist." AmCham commented on the budget's oil price in the group, saying it seems reasonable based on similar forecasts from reputable energy forecasting agencies. The Energy Chamber of TNT says it welcomes news by the Finance Minister that the energy and energy industries will meet with the Chamber in the next few months to finalize details of changes to the fiscal regime for the upstream energy sector to be introduced in the Finance Act 2025. And the Trinidad and Tobago Manufacturers Association is pleased with what it describes as the comprehensive review of the economy and fiscal measures presented by the Minister of Finance, Minister Imber, in his reading of the budget for fiscal 2025 yesterday in Parliament. The TTMA says it's encouraged by the fact that the non-energy manufacturing sector contributed 96% of total non-energy exports, up from 91% in 2020. Several manufacturing subsectors experienced significant gains in exports over fiscal 2020 to 2023, including food and beverage at 40%, paper and paper-related products 47%, plastics and rubber products 66%, and textiles and apparels also seeing increases. The Trinidad and Tobago Chamber of Industry and Commerce is pleased with the measures outlined to reduce food import dependency, such as the introduction of a Food Security Prices Committee and the introduction of a renewable energy and climate smart technologies to reduce water wastage and increase crop yields. The Chamber also says the proposed clear strategy to be executed to address issues pertaining to land tenure and predial larceny, and a policy to extend employment tax incentive to hire youths for the agricultural sector to boost the sector. The Chamber also supports a holistic, data-driven taxpayer approach to online payments and user-friendly taxpayer services that the Trinidad and Tobago Revenue Authority is expected to bring. We'll have more on the budget coming up in our 7 a.m. newscast. And that's news to 6 a.m. right here on News Power Digital. We'll have major news coming your way at 7. Good morning.
Up to date and credible. Power 102 Digital.
Neighbors, good Tuesday morning to you. Thank you so much for joining us on the Power Breakfast Show on Power 102 Digital. Yep, it is the first day of October. All right, first day of October. Christmas is around the bend. How many days to Christmas? 85 days to Christmas. All right. Yeah. Of course, on the show this morning, we just heard from Dr. Paul Richards. We'll hear from Richard Ragoobarsingh. Wendell is off today. We got Ruben and Shade in the mix. Of course, my name is Steve Khan. 25 degrees at Piarco International Airport. Same in our beautiful sister Isle of Tobago. And let's see if the Met Office has updated their weather forecast for today. They said it's going to be hot and sunny conditions. Will be interrupted by cloudy spells accompanied by a few showers. There's a 30 to 40%, which is low to medium, chance of the isolated heavy shower and or thunderstorm, favoring late morning to mid-afternoon. Okay. Of course, traffic, usual stuff. Couva to Sugar Gorners and then volume everywhere else. Good morning to you, Pablo.
Good morning, Steve. Good morning, everyone.
Morning, man. What's happening?
No, a lot. Mr. Amber presented his budget yesterday, his 10th budget.
That was long, boy. How long you spoke for?
It was 5 hours and 19 minutes.
Wow.
He seemed to be in some sort of competition with the outstretching the opposition leader.
5 hours. Oh, boy.
And 19 minutes. Don't discount.
Can't forget the 19 minutes.
Okay. 5 hours
and 19 minutes. Wow.
Yeah, that's a lot. That's the longest I ever heard that budget, actually.
Yeah, normally average is about 3.
I think he may have broken the record and he wanted to break a record. I wonder why.
I wonder. I wonder. He did outline a few points, especially for the public sector, increasing their minimum wage from $20.50 to $22.50. Police getting more vehicles. 2,000 of them. I'll leave that right there.
So the budget, the fiscal package was based on an oil price of $77.80, which he described as conservative, given that the consistent oil price, he said, over the past few months has been in the realm of between 90 and 80 something dollars. US dollars per barrel, and gas usually it was standing at about $5 per MMBTU. He pegged our gas price at $3.59 per MMBTU. So he was a bit more conservative this year, to me, based on what happened when he had to come back to the population and say, well, y'all were right. A lot of the experts were right, and you need to be conservative with the pegging. If it goes above what you project it to be, well, you're in the range to make money or lower the deficit. If it's not, you end up in a tailspin. So overall revenue is projected to be $54.224 billion, and expenditure that's $59.741 billion. So there'll be a deficit of $5.517 billion. We'll see what happens if we get to a mid-year review for this election year. Education and training got the top amount with 7.51 billion. Newsday, you have it wrong.
A newspaper have something wrong? Never.
Newsday has it wrong.
Something wrong.
Newsday has the health as saying the health is top allocation. That's not accurate. Health was second, 7.57 billion. But wait, like they was right. If 5.1 is less than 5.7, the poster I get it wrong. Let me check the poster. No, but that's what the minister said.
Yeah. For me, all sports equipment except clothing exempt from tax. Yeah.
Education and training 7.512. Health 7.571. Yeah, health is more. So there we go. Is they right? Express you wrong. And national security third. Well, yeah, if these numbers are accurate, and they are, 7.51 is less than 7.57. So, unless I'm crazy. National security at 6.113 billion. Utilities 3.33 billion. Infrastructure 1.86. They separated infrastructure and transport for some reason this year. Usually works and transport usually put together, but they separated it. Rural development 1.77 billion, transport 1.41 billion, agriculture 1.18 billion, and housing 750 million. They're clearly slowing down their building of houses. The Tobago House of Assembly 2.599 billion.
He wanted 8, was it?
He wanted 5.
It's 5, okay.
Yeah, it represents a 4.35% of the national budget. Or maybe he wanted 5%. There have been no announced increases in electricity rates, the water rates, or the cost of fuel.
Yeah.
Which people were waiting to hear. There was no such announcement. You know, VAT refunds are coming.
Yeah, for small businesses.
Small businesses will be happy to hear that.
Yeah. Cal to get approved. They got approval to acquire more aircraft. So it's a Coast Guard for boats.
Well, I didn't really focus on the promises too much.
Yeah.
I kind of focus on the hard numbers because, you know, promises are just that, promises. Go back
road paving
and see what percentage. Remember last year we got a big announcement about some special road grant to pave routes that end up getting scrapped mid-year.
Yeah.
Right. So it's the promises thing. I already focus on the promises thing too much, but the hard numbers, yes. So, Port of Spain, Central Block, to be completed by March next year. Which suggests to me there's no election before that.
Yeah.
Morning, Ragoobarsingh.
Hi, good morning, guys. And good morning,
Church
and viewers wherever you are.
Yeah. Coast Guard getting a lot of new vessels. They invested in drones. Richard, they listening to you, boy.
You know what was interesting for me?
When
I heard that the platform for school for the education ministry, and they were going to have e-textbooks and all of that, because that's something that we've been advocating on this show
for years,
for several years now, that there should be e-textbooks. And up to this year, we were discussing, why do parents have to go through this stressful, there is a book list every single year, rather than just having to be confined to getting stationery and e-textbooks are provided. And according to what the Minister of Finance said yesterday, he said e-textbooks across the primary and secondary school system in all subject areas. So to me, that translates a moving away from book lists. And so that is the greatest reprieve to me, to parents across the country, regardless of social or economic class.
Let's wait to see it implemented now.
Well, we have to wait and see, because a budget is a statement of intent. But
because last year I heard about the breaking of the textbook mafia. Remember that?
Yes.
Mhm.
Yes.
And the streamlining of textbooks. Remember that?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Right. Okay.
So we'll have to wait and see. But at least
Wait
the
and see.
intent,
But
is
the statement
there,
of intent is admirable and commendable.
yeah.
But let's wait and see if it's actually done. All right. There'll be 4 patrol launches and 8 high-speed interceptors, 2 search and rescue surveillance fixed-wing aircraft, and the purchase of unmanned aerial vehicles, drones, to assist with surveillance, search and rescue.
I don't mind search. I mean, I know the TTPS talks about drones, and I know the state is more interested in going the way of drones rather than manned helicopters, which of course are more expensive because you have a human resource to pay. And maybe there's more maintenance costs attached to a helicopter.
Correct.
But I am yet to see the efficacy of drones being launched in real time to give real-time data about where a vehicle is going and that interception that the TTPS in tandem with cameras on the ground.
Mm-hmm.
I am sure maybe it does happen from time to time, but you do not get the sense that it's consistent, if at all.
Yeah.
And so that when X happens, because sometimes I'm sure there when a home invasion takes place or whatever takes place, there's real-time information. They were in a black Tita that's heading down the southern main road. I'm just giving an example.
Yeah. Or you could use like a white wagon that was stolen last evening
Right.
at Starlight Shopping Plaza.
There has to be some sort of connectivity between cameras on the ground and eye in the sky that's following where this vehicle is going, because that vehicle is not traveling at a normal speed. That vehicle is going to be trying to escape, and you should have the intelligence to be able to pursue, because unless you start holding criminals accountable and they knowing that they will not get away, there's not going to be a dent.
Yeah.
They have to know that they're not going to get away, and that's the greatest dissuader to crime.
I think you're underestimating the potential of drones, Richard.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I am yet to see.
The modern law enforcement drones have significant range. Think about Amazon delivering products, and that hiked up by a couple exponentials. You understand? I think you're underestimating the potential of drones for surveillance and rescue, search and rescue. Good morning, Wendell.
Search and rescue, I totally get it. But as I said, in terms of that real-time crime situation, I'm yet to see it.
And a drone can do that.
Well, I am yet to see it, Paul.
Okay, well, go and look at some movies.
But I'm just saying because from the data that you see coming out of the US, it's usually helicopters. Even when you see
I know I disagree with that. I see more drones now in more jurisdictions than helicopters actually.
You have seen drones following vehicles
in the US.
I have not seen that.
Real time.
I've seen police officers in police officer support in the air.
Yeah, I've seen that.
That's what I see. I don't see drones.
I see drones. Good morning, Wendell.
Well, hi, good morning. Good morning. Good morning, Steve. Morning, Paul. Morning, Richard. Good morning, Trinidad and Tobago. And good morning, listeners and viewers.
Morning, Wendell.
Hi. Intense discussion this morning. I ain't hear nothing yet about how good the budget was. It was an excellent budget, didn't you think?
Well, I was
talking about... and you're casting judgment?
Yeah. I cast judgment since yesterday. I told you all that the government was engaged in some sort of reverse psychology, preparing us for the worst, and then it didn't come because gas didn't raise. Nothing went up, really. You know, it was...
that is not accurate.
Minimum
wage for public sector workers increased. So that went up.
Right. That went up. That's a good thing.
Yeah.
That's a good thing. It went from 20,000 to 50
So those nothing went up. I thought it was a well thought out budget.
Hold on. Repeat that. I want to record it.
I thought it was a well thought out budget. given that we're in an election cycle, and they actually thought about how they could deal with many of the critical issues facing the country. They know that crime is of significant concern. Probably the biggest concern in the country is crime. And they knew that they had to spend to place particular emphasis on crime fighting initiatives, border control. They mentioned the craft that they intend to purchase. Right. I stress intend. I hope they maintain them so that 80% not offline in maintenance while the borders are porous, which is an issue now. You understand? So they clearly realized that was a vulnerability. They thought about the fact that there are segments of the education sector that are really reeling, particularly primary and secondary schools. You understand?
Yes.
They realized there's an issue with school repairs and funding for that. So there's a special fund put aside now additionally for school repairs.
Yes. The only area I think I was disappointed in, not disappointed might be a harsh word, was the issue of housing. I find that there's very little emphasis on the building of houses. All the grandiose plans that we had to build houses, high-rise houses, and so on. You're just not hearing anything again. And in this budget, the housing ministry, I thought the grant was kind of low. You know?
But he did mention housing. He talked about raising if I heard correctly, raising the cost of what that basic house was, because whatever price it was before, he said contractors said that they couldn't use that price to properly build houses for the basic units.
Right.
And so they were increasing that price point that the state was willing to pay to 200 and something thousand.
Okay.
Whatever it was before. So there was a reference in the 5-hour-long speech that I drifted in and out of sleep sometimes.
You alone? I drifted in and out of the home.
But he did mention housing. There was some attention paid to it.
Yeah. There was also,
I don't know to the extent you're thinking, but there was some attention paid.
Yeah, there was also, I think, an increase in the stamp duty for new homeowners from, I think, $850,000 to $2 million.
Yeah, they raised the level.
That you don't pay stamp. Yeah, I think that's an excellent move.
Yeah, I think so too. And we were talking earlier, Wendell, about but there were two things that I think, I don't want to say came directly from the Power Breakfast show, but
we'll take it. We'll take it.
Did you tell embarkation and disembarkation card?
Well, that is what I was getting to. Immigration issue.
Yes. Yes.
Immigration issue, which we have raised
all the time.
Yeah.
Linked to a national e-card, but I'll wait and see how and if it's implemented, because we hear that before.
Yes, we have.
We have.
And we have actually gotten somewhere with it before. We had the machines.
Well, it has not been
implemented. Okay, it has not been implemented.
Electronic passports. I'm not so sure what that means. What is an electronic passport? I'm
not sure what it's more of an electronic. There's no, you have a barcode now, but it goes more into the realm of digital fingerprinting with your passport.
But who has that in operation right now that we can use example from?
Countries? I don't know. I don't know of any country that doesn't use a hard copy passport.
That's what I'm saying.
I don't know.
Yeah.
But I know that well, you can use people who there are countries that have e-ID cards.
Right. Yes.
You understand?
Right.
And e-driver's permits. So that's not far off an e-passport in terms of official identification in the digital realm. You understand? Yeah. So as Richard said, this is projective thinking, because Minister of Health did tell us years ago about this ID card and linked to a national ID card, and the Minister of Digital Transformation told us it's coming, and so let's see. It's a good proposition.
Well, now might be a good time to talk to Minister Hasselbackers to find out if it is his work that is coming to fruition, because we haven't heard from him for a while.
But from a budget or two back, the Minister of Finance had indicated that we were moving to everybody getting a digital ID. I may be calling it by the wrong name, but a digital ID in terms of the transactional intersect between government services. You talked about that about a budget or two back, but it hasn't yet materialized. I don't know if this is an indication of that being ramped up. And
As of Friday, the 20th, 89,000 residential property owners paid property tax, totaling $91 million.
Yes, I saw that too.
I think, if I'm not mistaken, is it 400,000 are eligible?
Yeah.
400,000
Property owners.
I think it's half of that. I think
200,000?
half of that are actual homeowners, then.
No, I think half got assessments.
Yes.
I don't think it's a half got assessments. So I think that's a pretty good start, quite frankly.
Yes.
And if they could make 91 million from that, it means that certainly that they in the realm of making between $300 and $400 million in property tax alone.
Yeah, because that's about a quarter.
Yeah, exactly. So
Yeah.
that is a significant revenue stream. But as I said before, and I'll say it again, I thought it was a well thought out budget. It is a kind of election budget, but not totally. You know, when you're raising minimum wage for public sector workers. And now, why I say it's well thought out, I thought it was quite creative to say, because I didn't think it could be done that way, to say raise the minimum wage for public sector workers alone as opposed to nationally.
Right.
And that's why I said it's well thought out. Because if it was raised nationally, it would impact private sector and increase employment levels.
Yes.
You understand?
But not only that.
He explained that too, eh?
But he also indicated, as you're talking about public sector level wages, he also indicated they were prepared to go into the 2019 to 2022. Is it 2022?
Yes.
Arrange for negotiation. Increase salaries, and he said the government is prepared to offer 5%.
5%.
He has already telegraphed to all of those unions, we are putting 5% on the table.
And he said he's already spoken to the CPO, is going to talk to the CPO about starting those negotiations at 5%.
But it's also targeted to the unions that accepted the 4% before.
Well, I think that was kind of a salvo, in my opinion, to the PSA and the NUGFW.
Exactly.
That, you know, if you negotiate and accept the 4%, they have a 5% coming almost immediately. So they're getting a 9% in a kind of way, not at one point, but over a period of two negotiating periods, you're getting 9%. It's adding up to 9%.
And that's why I said it was well thought out. When you mentioned that by December, people will get their VAT refunds and stuff like that, he touched a wide number of sectors in society.
The VAT refunds are coming as in bonds, not so?
No, not all. For those who own large sums, is bonds.
So
for the small sums, they'll get cash.
I thought it was
I hope that includes small contractors who are being owed by some of these state agencies.
Because I looked at responses from some members of the opposition on a couple of television stations last night, and a lot of the remonstrations were focused not on the budget measures themselves, but the potential for lack of implementation. You understand?
Yeah.
Because this has been an Achilles heel of this government for to be almost 9 years. I mean, you announce things in the budget and very few of them come to pass.
Yeah.
You understand? And a lot of the demonstration or the critique was focused on whether or not a lot of what has been announced will be delivered.
Yeah. Well, I'm happy. I'm extremely happy for the 5,000 odd MTS workers, 6,000 odd CPEP workers, and the URP workers. I'm happy for them that they will get that $2 extra.
Just the fact that based on the anxiety leading up after the Prime Minister's statement that there were concerns about electricity rates, water rates, and the cost of fuel, and that had not been touched. Was a great relief to many people. So I said it is quite creatively thought out. My concern, as I said before, is the issue of implementation of the projected measures.
Yeah. Another interesting thing that the Minister of Finance talked about was the fact, well, of course, it's a deficit budget. So there's a $5 billion deficit, roughly, a little over $5 billion. And he indicated the intent of how they were going to get that $5 billion. And a lot of it was, well, what he suggested was that they were going to sell certain assets to the state. Now,
Clico,
the 49%.
49.
Clico.
yeah, he said that will yield some.
I don't know if that includes the Republic Bank holdings, or if they're going to leave that with the NIF. Is it NIF?
I hope they don't touch Republic Bank.
So I don't know if they're going to divest all of that. There seems to be suggestions that they want to divest the 49% in TSTT.
I get that impression too.
You got that impression?
Yeah, I get. The Prime Minister didn't say no, and the Minister of Public Utility didn't say no. When they say it's not before the cabinet at this time, it may be a roundtable discussion.
Yeah.
There was also an announcement about, my brain went blank there. I think, as I said before, I think it's a well sorted budget. It'll be interesting to see how
You're influencing the poll, Paul. But you keep saying that.
when you started what you said. When you started what you said, but remember, I'm giving my opinion.
I just teased you.
Does my opinion have to be a particular way?
I don't want the UNC start a ball. Oh, he's sounding like a PNM. I don't want to get that.
And that's all right.
I don't
And
want to get that
sometimes the
flag.
PNM will say sound like a UNC, and that's all
I'm
right.
saving you from that flag. Well,
Everybody has the right to the opinion, no matter how wrong it is. You have the right to an erroneous opinion. That's
in
the
terms of getting money too, he also said that they were going to sell Magdalena.
Oh, I remember what I was going to say. And I think there were 3 people shortlisted to potentially purchase the Patrician refinery.
Yes, I saw that too. I heard
Yeah,
that.
so that could
it's time to do something about that.
There's a request.
Wait, Richard, you say sell Magdalena?
Yes.
It's sell or repair?
selling Magdalena.
Sell.
He said sell.
He said sell.
But
while he said that, he also said that they're in the market for building a huge
5-star resort,
sandals scale resort in Tobago.
I wondered if that was also
and a marina in Tobago.
Directly an approach to sandals again. Yes. Saying we are prepared to do it, and we are looking because, of course, because the rest of the Caribbean kind of pays attention to other people's budgets in a tangential kind of way.
Yeah.
But certainly the business community pays attention. The Caribbean business community pays attention to budgets, especially in the bigger islands, to see what's happening. So I don't know if that was a kind of,
Let me ask you a question. Have any of you guys ever stayed at a Sandals anywhere?
I went into a Sandals. I didn't stay there.
You didn't actually experience a Sandals resort?
No, I haven't stayed at a Sandals.
Let me tell you something. It's the ultimate vacation. Outside of a cruise, it's the ultimate vacation.
It depends on what you're into.
Well, you could be into anything. Sandals have serious. Listen, the estate is sprawling. You could do what you want.
You have everything that Paul requires.
You could go. No, Paul could go behind a plant somewhere.
What?
What does that mean?
What does that mean?
What does that mean?
What does that even mean?
I don't know. Kick him off.
Randy, your video is frozen though.
Is it?
Yeah, for a while.
I'm seeing myself moving. But I'm just saying, no, Sandals.
That could be a problem in your life. You see yourself moving, but you're not really moving.
It could be that. It could be that. No, I had a very stressful day yesterday. A very, very stressful day yesterday. So I decided to cheer me up. I came on this morning too. Just for the first hour, because I know you have Minister Brian Manning in the second hour, and I could go back to sleep then. I could go back and get an hour's sleep then. But 100 roads to be paved, guys. I just hope they paved Tumpuna Road in Arimon.
Well, we also heard in the last budget about this special road paving. How much of $100 million it was that never came to pass?
Yeah, that was
okay.
So
I don't focus on the promises too much anymore.
I don't know. Maybe there was some roads that got paved.
It didn't come off as it was announced, Richard. You know that.
It didn't.
Okay, let's not pretend that it was okay that a couple of roads get paved. The scale it was announced at, it didn't happen. Let's not.
Well, it was announced. If you remember, the proposal was that it will go to local government. And then that changed. I think it switched back to Ministry of Works. And it just got stuck. It got stuck at local government, and it seems to have gotten stuck to at Ministry of Works.
Isn't that where everything goes to get stuck, Richard Wendell, with local government?
Local government, yeah.
Did you also get the impression?
Did you also get the impression that the property tax is not going to local government?
No, I didn't at all. No, I didn't.
You didn't get that impression?
No, there was actually a poster sent out because I was collecting the posters. Right?
Yeah, I got that impression.
Property taxes collected will be distributed to local government bodies for the following: maintenance of local roads, drains, and public facilities, including recreation grounds, development programs on that scale, and the provision of local service. So that is still in train.
So I stand corrected on that.
Yeah, but I mean there's several. But I mean there has been some.
I'm confused. Wait, what do you mean by he can go behind a tree?
There has been some ramping up. I must admit, though, that with the Ministry of Works and Transport, there has been some more vigilance about roads, even though there's a lot of roads that leave a lot to be desired. But you get a sense that they are at least more sensitive to criticism about it. And certainly in terms of the road repairs they've been doing on the highways or repairs, you see a lot of works going on in different areas. And certain things that have been completed, whether it be in the West, in terms of all of that road network in the West by that roundabout, which is a big kind of relief that you have to just go around the roundabout. I don't mind it at all.
By Westmore, you mean?
Yeah, by Westmore there.
Yeah.
But that's as far west as I go.
Yes.
To go beyond Westmore. Yeah. And
you don't park in the peninsula?
No, I don't go down there. And so I go as far as Westmore and then head back. And
exemption on taxes from computers, computer hardware, software, CCTV cameras, and
that existed. That's
already before.
That has existed for a while.
Mobile phones too.
Yep. Yeah, that existed for a while.
You have no taxes on mobile phones.
That's existed since.
And they're still so expensive.
Yeah,
that's existed since a little after COVID.
Forget the monopolies we have here.
Yeah, especially as we were getting into that, a lot of people were moving on to online. So they had done that since COVID, but he's indicating that they're just keeping it, I think. So there was so much to because it's 5 hours.
There's an announced online learning platform for Remedial, which I think is a great idea. Again, implementation is we'll wait and see. There are a lot of promises, like every other budget, as you say, it's a statement of intent, and it's going to be interesting to see, because this is Minister Imber's 10th budget. I find it very curious that he decided to take 5 hours and 90 minutes. That is kind of curious.
And he didn't drink water.
No, he did drink water. You keep saying that again. You're not observant, sir.
But I didn't see him.
He did take a couple of sips of water.
He did. Must be one of the times you looked away, Wendell.
Probably the times I looked away, but I didn't see him drink.
But he did,
But he made a lot of errors. He said called a hal.
But he couldn't say beaucoup.
Yeah, beaucoup. Yeah.
I don't understand which French you don't know where beaucoup is.
I live for the day that you have budget day, and at midnight of the night of just before budget day, they release the budget document. And that a Minister of Finance will come on and say, well, the budget document has been released online. This is just a summary of some of the things that we're doing. But for more detailed analysis, you can reference the budget online.
You are clearly a technocrat and not a politician. A budget statement is a political statement.
It is.
Okay.
And you can't give anybody
statement. It's probably the most marquee statement any administration makes in the year.
As I said, that's how it's done.
You can't do
but Paul, Katie had a question for you. He says, if the budget is a bill laid in the House, when being read, how come the minister can say effectively, immediately, gas prices will be increased? What if the budget is not approved in the House? What happens then?
Well, they have the majority. So
because they have the majority, and the debate is just a formality.
Yep.
Yeah. It is.
And really and truly, there's no vote count in a budget because it's really a formality. Debate is a formality to raise issues and to identify issues on either side or all sides. And there is no say anyone has in financial bills.
Yep. And there's certain things that the Minister of Finance does have the power to increase.
To do. So that's why he could say it's raised immediately because it will pass.
Immediate effect as of midnight tonight.
Yeah, they can do
they have the power to do that.
All right. So we do have some calls coming through. Let's grab them short and sweet. Good morning.
Good morning, Steve.
Morning.
Good morning to everyone on the program this morning.
Morning.
So I started listening to the budget from just before 2 o'clock. And when it was 4 o'clock, I stopped listening. And then to hear later in the news that the budget finished close to 6:30, I feel like Dr. Eric Williams came back.
6:49.
Yeah, it was closer to 7.
So I said, it's a good thing I couldn't listen to all of that because the time I saw Mr. Imbert reading, I saw him drink 2 sips of water. And after 5, I heard the Speaker of the House, like she and all was sounding tired because I was in the car and I heard her say, okay, members, like the people are getting antsy now. They're getting kind of restless. But anyway, in the budget itself, I was kind of focused on the education part of it. And again, they get the most money, although it wasn't much more from the health. But some of the things that they said, I know those things were said before, like the bursaries for students, instead of, the full scholarships to give. And I remembered in 2020, when they said the bursaries, those who didn't get scholarships would get bursaries, was 500, But like it boiled down because every year is less than 300. And Ms. Imbert said last year they gave out 277 bursaries. So what will happen to the balance of money that they budgeted for the other 223 or 123? What will happen to that? Because I will say something about this maybe later on, but I just mentioned this. A lot of people not taking up the bursaries because they have too much things to get. Okay? Because my daughter had to apply and she will get shredded if she gets shredded, but she has all the credentials for it. But some of the things I find is very unrealistic to some students where the parents cannot afford to send them to do extracurricular activities or to belong to an NGO. I find it's not a level playing field when they have to use that. Anyway, I'll stop now because
yeah. Thank you. Good morning.
Never was, never will be.
Good morning.
Good morning, gentlemen.
Morning.
Good morning,
Paul, I admire your skepticism this morning. If I had said it, people would say I'm anti-government.
Well, that is your perspective. You say skepticism, but you didn't mention it. I thought it was a thoughtful budget. So you pick the piece you want to run with and you run with it.
But you did indicate skepticism. Will it be implemented, you said?
Yeah, but I did say it was a thoughtful budget.
I'm stating what you said, but you so like to be nitpicky. I'm stating what you said.
And you don't like to be nitpicky. You don't like to be nitpicky, right? You're not nitpicky at all.
Nitpicky. I am also nitpicky, so I'm not mad at you, but I'm saying what you said. You wait to see it being implemented. Why you being a little... You're on the way and I'm not. Anyway,
leave that for us to think on the program, not you.
Pardon me?
That's for us, our party, not yours.
Go ahead.
I wait to see any of these things being implemented, especially that of the e-passport and the e-declaration form. Hogwash as far as I'm concerned.
So you are skeptic too then? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, that's what he said. He started off by saying that.
I'm supporting what Paul said. I'm endorsing what Paul said. I'm not expecting anything.
Why you and Paul don't meet someone and talk? Why you and Paul don't meet someone and talk?
The only thing I could foresee happening, definitely, is the road work. And that is because of history.
So you don't see the public sector workers in MTS, CPEP, and URP getting the increase. You don't see that.
No, those things will happen. That will happen. But I'm saying in terms of the grand scheme of things, the only thing I see materializing is the road work. Because
so you don't see the 2,000 new police cars.
Nemesis.
You don't see that.
Yeah? You know what the meaning of only is?
I would see the two hold
You
on.
keep saying the only thing you say only has a meaning, only mean one.
One and done.
I would see the implementation of the 2,000 vehicles a week before, 2 months before the general election. By the way, I see there's a upsurge of work being done on one of the towers in 500. And I stopped and I asked the contractor, what is the completion date? He watched me laugh, he twiddle. He said, sure, go finish before election. And I knew what that meant. Right?
All right.
I am still grateful that it is being worked on, and at least one of them will be finished.
You were wrong Woodford Square with a placard yesterday, Nemesis. Were you by Woodford Square with a placard yesterday?
No, I wouldn't do that kind of foolish.
No, that was Philip Alexander.
Okay.
Saw him there. All right. Thanks, Nemesis. One more call before we go headlines. Good morning.
Somebody looking like you.
Morning, guys.
Morning.
Good morning.
You know, I listened to a pastor called Joel Olstein one Saturday or Sunday morning, and he said something. He said, when you speak negative things, you give it life. And I always remember that. Yes, as a human, you will say certain things. But I am wondering, after hearing Nemesis, all you're talking about, and this and we ain't getting that, before you pray and hope that, yes, at least some of the things will be implemented. You're coming and saying, you ain't think this will happen and only one? Trinidadians really serious? Let me tell you, I never used to listen to a budget. Since I small growing up, my father had this radio on and hearing Dr. Eric Williams' voice. Oh God, I used to hate it. And I became an adult, I don't listen. I wait until, well, by time after 7, people start posting all what was said, and I say, yes, that's why reading. And you know what I will hope? What it is the for the school. What they call it again, Paul?
The e-textbooks.
The what?
E-textbooks.
Right. I will hope that will be implemented because, listen, I had a time in my life running to get a maths textbook for my grandson.
Ma'am.
Yes, sir?
You know what the implication of an e-textbook is?
No, I'm not sure what that is.
The implication of an e-textbook is that every student has a device to read it on.
Yeah, no more paper books.
You all know that, right?
But every time, Paul.
Does every student have a device to read it on?
Well, then they might give them tablet then. Like when
did you hear any announcement about a budgetary allocation with the tablet or the device to read the textbook?
Well, Paul, let's hope now because you go say.
Hope. Okay, hope.
During the COVID, children get tablets, so maybe
not all children got tablets. And if you're moving to e-textbook, which I think is a wonderful proposition, you should have also announced provisions for making sure that children had devices on which they can read.
Wasn't that done prior?
Well, I hope, Paul, let's hope that will be done because let me tell you, I'm fed up running and trying to get textbook. And they should have, I saw somebody put on the chat, there was rental of books in school, but let me tell you, it have parents who, I have a friend say, my child ain't going to be using no second-hand book. Let me tell you, my son, when he was going CIC, used to beg me, oh God, mommy, because CIC used to have a book exchange. Oh, the children going in Form 1, they will sell the books to the new children coming in. And I used to buy there, and I used to go Unique Bookstore in Woodford Square. And my son used to say, oh God, mommy, buy a new book now. And it never stopped him. He passed the exam. He went to Jamaica. He ended up in Duke's University. So all you stop talking nonsense about, want no second-hand book because half of them professors were teaching in UE. They learn in third-hand book because I learn under third-hand book. You all have a best.
Thank you.
But you know, you can't win with all here. They announced again for the umpteenth time about the no taxes, no duties and taxes on laptops and computers and so on. Right? What they really want?
That doesn't mean everyone can afford one Wendell Stevens.
Well,
Richard,
people
do you have
will,
newspapers?
when you know what? When I was a local government official, guess what?
Richard,
We
do you have
acquired and we
newspapers?
gave out in our areas.
Yes, I do.
Richard, do you have newspapers?
I said, yes, I do. You're
Can you
deaf.
share them with us?
Richard said yes 3 times. Let's get into it, gentlemen.
All right. Newsday for today. And of course, today is Tuesday, October 1st, 2024. So the best month of the year has begun.
Indeed, it has. Richard, you want to repeat that?
Yeah, we have 2 minutes for headlines, gentlemen. So let's go.
Imber unveils $59.7 billion budget after 5-hour speech. Pay rises for government workers. $22.5 minimum wage for $22.50 minimum wage for government workers. 5% wage hike for public servants. 2,000 cars for police. 3 bidders for refinery. E-passport online departure forms. Digital medical records. Sport equipment tax-free and EV charging equipment duty-free. And there is a picture, Wendell, of the Minister of Finance sipping water. Sips water during his marathon 5-hour plus budget presentation in the House of Representatives. On the back page, Knight Riders, Battle Royals, and CPL Eliminator. Pollard, if you blink, you're out. Imber, tax and duty exemptions on sporting equipment. That's also on the back page. The Daily Express, a budget of promises at a glance, and of course they give you some of the main points: digital literacy, certification, solar powered sustainability project in secondary schools, agricultural internship program, CSEC remedial mathematics program, book grant, sporting equipment free, etc. There's a picture of Con Imbert holding up the budget with a big smile on his face. And on the back page of the Daily Express, $91 million in property tax, Imber money collected going to local government bodies. TKR take aim at Royals in CPL. And Basketball World mourns for Mutombo, and Sunway loan British entry in ARC. Moving on to The Guardian. Wage sweetener. Finance Minister unveils $59.74 billion budget. Offers public servants 5% salary hike for 2020 to 2022. $1 billion back pay by December, and $2 increase in minimum wage. $2 increase in minimum wage for public sector workers is what you should say.
Yeah.
And then give you key allocations. Of course, the ministry that got the largest amount from the budget is the Ministry of Health, which got $7.57 billion. Education was second with $57.51 billion. And national security was third with $6.11 billion. And on the back page of The Guardian, but it's a wraparound, Kamala on budget, betrayal and broken promises. And there's a picture of the protesters across Independence Square. Sport gets $600 million for fiscal 2025. And Puran Century carries TKR to victory, but not enough for a top 2 finish. Yeah. So that's it for our 3 dailies this morning on the first day of October.
And of course, on some international news, the U.S. dock workers along the East Coast, they're on strike, So I'm sure that will affect us some way. All right, let's get the results of our morning poll. Well, yesterday we asked you, do you think there will be an adjustment to fuel prices in the budget? Well, it's 50-50. We all know that did not happen.
We know that did not happen. Thank God.
All right, let's get this morning's poll.
There was also
taking your calls at 222-8255, WhatsApp at 318-1021, and of course, toll-free North Americans, 866-525-1099.
Yeah, quickly, guys, there was an announcement on electric vehicles. What was it again?
Accessories. No VATs and no taxes.
No taxes on
accessories for electric vehicles.
Yeah. He talked particularly about chargers.
Yeah.
I didn't know there was VAT on that. Because,
all right, our poll.
I have 2 options for polls. Do you expect the delivery of measures in the budget presentation 2025, or do you think the 2025 budget was a productive budget?
Second one.
Yeah, let's go to the second one.
Ragoobarsingh?
Yeah, I could go to the second one. I would change productive to good.
I was going to use the word good, but good is so subjective.
Yeah. Are you happy with the budget?
And that's what voting is. It is subjective.
I think that, Steve, is your question. Is the best
yeah. Steve short poll is good for today. Are you happy with the budget?
That's it. 222-8255. Toll free North Americans. 866-525-1099.
Of course, it working today.
It's just it's what the man in the street. They're
It
happy with
roll
the
off your
budget.
tongue,
I think this is the shortest poll we ever had, Steve.
Nobody is going to meet Richard about, hey, Richard,
you would have thought,
you think it's a productive budget?
Steve's short poll would have been, so popular.
And Steve is so excited about it. I must
All right. Yes or no? Are you happy with the budget? Yes or no? All right.
You go, Steve.
Mm-hmm.
That's our poll this morning. Are you happy with the 2025 budget? Simple and to the point. 222-TALK, 222-8255. North Americans, you can weigh in on this too. 866-52. It went straight out of my head.
All right. Let's see what we have here on WhatsApp. Let's see. David Nelson says yes. Somebody else says yes. Morning, please ask how the money will be allocated to purchase emergency safety equipment for fire trucks for the Trinidad Fire Department and getting jet skis for safety equipment. We'll add jet skis at Maracas, and that's all wrecked maintenance again.
Mm-hmm.
Good morning, caller. Good morning.
Good morning, gentlemen. Sandy Grandino.
All right, Grandy. Thank you so much. Thank you. Let's see. We've got some. Let's move this monitor a little bit. All right. David Wares, cautiously, yes. Good morning, Mrs. Wares. Slick Money Grip, yes. Gregory Bauer, yes. Wayne Bennett, yes. Donna Clark, absolutely. Okay. Pearl Cordes, yes. Cheryl Henry, yes. Dave Gosine, hey Dave, long time. Hope all is well. Yes. Corinne Duke, no. Jean Clark, yes. Boswell, John, yes. Mr. Mikes, yes. Let's see. What's up? Southman. We have a Southman. We have an up north. Okay. Yes. All right. Are you happy with the budget? Yes or no? Carol Guevara. Yes. 222-8255. WhatsApp 3181021. Put your name to it so I can call you out, hail you out. All right. Are you happy with the budget?
Big guy vote in there? What did big guy vote?
19 minutes. What's that right now?
What did big guy vote?
He vote? I don't know.
What did Hector vote?
Cheryl,
are you happy with the 2025 budget? That's our poll this morning. 222-TALK, 222-8255. North Americans, 866-525-1099.
Cheryl says yes.
Streaming platforms, you can send your votes via the portal there. And you can
Val says yes.
You can WhatsApp us as 318-1021.
All right. Anderson Matthews, yes. Beauty Culture, yes. Let's see. Good morning again. Kim. Morning, Kim. I vote yes. Out in Sugargonas. Let's see. I got another vote here. I just got a yes. I got another yes. Chris J says yes. The e-passport is a good idea. Well, yeah. Okay. Ron M. No. Hector did not vote. Okay, did not vote. Michael Robinson says yes.
What DL say?
Ray Garcia says yes. All right, quickly, you have like 30 seconds again to vote. Let's cram them in as much before Evie comes in with our major news. All right, let's see. I did Ray Garcia. Yes, I did. One more time. Are you happy with the budget? 5 hours. Let's see. Massive says yes.
No.
Yeah, Michael Gradison says yes. All right. All right. Any more votes coming in? Let me just check quickly before I head into our news and our guest next hour. Michael out in London says yes. Simply the best. Simply the best. Oh, I will not sing. I was going to do a Tina there. Let's get into our 7 o'clock major news. AV is in.
This is your news bulletin from Power 102 Digital.
Government to spend $59.7 billion this fiscal year. Education and training gets the largest budget allocation, and the opposition leader describes the budget as an insult. Details in a moment. This is news to 7 o'clock on Power 102 Digital. I'm Avril Sindhil-Bab. Good morning. Finance Minister Colm Imbert yesterday delivered a budget package with salary increases and other sweeteners for public servants in an overall $59.741 billion package. The 2025 budget was based on an oil price of US $77.80, a natural gas price of US $3.59 per MMBTU, revenue projected at $54.224 billion and expenditures at $59.741 billion. The budget will be a deficit of $5.517 billion. This was revealed by Minister of Finance Colm Imbert as he presented the national budget in Parliament on Monday.
Our oil price assumption for 2025 will be US $77.80 per barrel, compared with US $85 per barrel in 2024. And our natural gas price assumption will be US $3.59 per MMBTU, compared with US $5 per MMBTU in 2024.
He also gave a breakdown of the factors which influenced the government's projections.
The total estimated revenue of $54,224 million comprises $14,174 million in oil revenue, $35 billion, as I adverted before, and $39 million from non-oil revenue, and $4 billion and $11 million from capital revenue.
Education and training will get the largest amount of the budget allocation of this year's national budget, $7.512 billion. This will be followed by health at $7.571 billion. National security will receive $6.113 billion. Public utilities $3.221 billion, and infrastructure $1.862 billion. In terms of Tobago, the sister isle House of Assembly will get $2.599 billion. $2.376 billion will go toward the recurrent expenditure. $205 billion will be allocated to development program expenditure.
$18 million is for the URP and $9.2 million for CPEP. The total allocation for the Tobago House of Assembly in 2025 represents an increase of $22.756 million over the allocation of $2.576 billion in fiscal year 2024 and represents 4.35% of the national budget.
There will not be any increase in electricity rates, water rates, or the cost of fuel. A 5% wage increase offer for public servants, $2 minimum wage hike for public sector workers from November will also be in effect. This increase will benefit 5,100 workers at MTS, 6,900 workers in CPAP, and 6,200 workers in URP, among other public sector workers earning minimum wage. There will be VAT refunds coming, tax and NI NIS amnesties, and 3 entities shortlisted for the Guacara refinery were included in a package with some dubbed an election budget. Loaded with optimism and positives, the budget will apply to the period taking TNT up to the end of the next fiscal year, ending September 2025, a period when general election is due. Imbert gave a longer than usual presentation, 5 hours and 19 minutes, during which he positively detailed the PNM government's achievements in all sectors over the term. Other key takeaways include government will move to sell its 49% shareholdings in Colonial Life Insurance Company. All electric vehicle charging equipment and related accessories will be exempt from all duties and taxes. Tax and NIS amnesty will also be in effect between October 1st and December 31st, 2024. New body cameras, guns, bulletproof vests, speed guns, and cars are some of the assets the government will allocate to the police service. Imbert said over the next 3 years, 2,000 new cars will be given to the service. In terms of the Immigration Division, work will take place on setting up an automated fingerprint identification system, which will aid in strengthening border management and improving national security. The Coast Guard and Air Guard will also receive new assets to aid in securing the country's borders. These include 4 patrol launches, 8 high-speed interceptors, 2 search and rescue surveillance fixed-wing aircraft, and unmanned aerial vehicle drones to assist with surveillance and search and rescue. There will be an online payment option for property tax by or before October 31st. September 30th was the original deadline. However, it was extended to November 29th as announced in the budget on Monday. Government has allocated $91 million so far in property tax from 89,441 residential owners. You are listening to news on Power 102 Digital to 7 o'clock. Opposition leader Kamla Persad-Bissassa says a United National Congress government would increase the minimum wage to $25 and offer public servants a 10% hike in wage negotiations. The former Prime Minister lambasted Finance Minister Colm Imbert, who she said presented an election budget with an insulting increase of peanuts for the people, whilst millions are earmarked for vanity projects and contractors.
The manufacturing sector is dead. The non-energy sector is dead. After the fiasco with the Auditor General earlier this year, which remains unresolved, the country has no faith, I certainly have none, no trust, no confidence in any of the data the minister presented today. As citizens, we know the reality on the ground. No police cars, no medicine hospitals, no books for children, no water in taps, no food on our tables, no jobs. And on top of all of that, $3 billion remain accounted for here.
She made the comments while speaking yesterday at a media briefing after the reading of the budget. We will have more on her reaction in the subsequent newscast at 12 noon. Well, finally, let's find out what's happening with weather news for the period today till midnight. Trinidad and Tobago, predominantly hot and sunny conditions will be interrupted by cloudy spells accompanied by a few showers. There's a low to medium chance of isolated heavy showers and thunderstorms favoring late morning to mid-afternoon. Nighttime mostly fair despite isolated showers. Please note gusty winds and street or flash flooding may occur in or near heavy showers or thunderstorms. Look out for a forecast maximum temperature of 34 degrees Celsius at Piarco International Airport and 33 degrees Celsius at Crown Point in Tobago. Currently, the temperature is 28 degrees Celsius at Piarco and 26 degrees Celsius at Crown Point. Recapping your headlines to 7 o'clock, government to spend $59.7 billion this fiscal year. Education and training get the largest budget allocation, and the opposition leader describes the budget as an insult. I'm Avril Sintel-Bab. That was news to 7 o'clock on Power 102 Digital. Look out for more news in detail at 12 noon today and an update at 8 o'clock this morning. For more details, log on to power102fm.com.
Up to date and credible. Power 102 Digital.
All righty. Thank you so much, Avril, for our major news. Was that? What?
You're welcome.
Oh, she's been kind. All right. Thank you for our major news. Of course, you can join her again. Come 8 o'clock for our news brief. Quickly, let's see if we have any more votes. Let's see what's up. I have Lenny James saying yes. Thank you, Lenny. Good morning to you. Wayne Joseph from Ontario, Canada says yes. Let's see. Okay, and that is it.
So our poll this morning was, are you happy with the 2024-2025 budget? And we had 33 people voting in the allotted time. Of the 33 people voting, 30 of you said yes, you are happy. 3 of you said no, you are not. So the yeas have it this morning. Of course, you can continue to vote on this poll throughout the day and throughout programming. And we'll give you the final result tomorrow morning, which will be Wednesday and already midweek, which will herald the opening of the box office at Sapa as That's Extravagant News moves to Sapa in San Fernando this weekend, Saturday at 8:30 and Sunday at 6:30. Of course, we had a fabulous time at Queen's Hall over the weekend. The launch and premiere of the play, a brand new play, that premiered for the first time before an audience on Saturday night and Sunday night, and I think people had a wonderful time. So I mean, people really had a great time. I mean, there are points where the audience was absolutely roaring. So we're on this weekend at Sapa in San Fernando. Saturday at 8:30, Sunday at 6:30. The box office at Sapa opens tomorrow morning from 12 noon to 6 p.m. daily. And of course, tickets available at the usual outlets in San Fernando, K-Squared Fashions in C3 Center, Gulf City and Brentwood Mall in Chagonas, and Fens of Marabella by the Roundabout.
All right. Thank you so much, Richard Rich. While we wait for our guest to come online. Where did Wendell go?
Did you send him the link, Steve?
Yeah, I did that already.
Wendell said he was staying until 7.
Oh, he did? Okay. I missed that. Well, we have a few calls. Let's hear from you guys. Good morning.
Good morning. Dr. Paul, what were you saying about the ebook?
Ms. Thompson wants to know what were you saying about the ebook.
I said it's a great idea, but you have to make sure that students have the devices on which to read them.
But so who's supposed to buy the devices? The government? My taxpayers' money again? If you can't mind, the children don't make it. Everything in Trinidad had to be free, so I'll send a video on WhatsApp for you just now.
Please don't.
Yeah, we don't open videos or play audio.
Not interested. Keep your video.
All right, thanks, Ms. Sampson.
What you said before that?
I'm not play videos or play audio on WhatsApp. Just read. Thank you. Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning, gentlemen.
Hi.
Good morning, mi amor. Buenos días. ¿Cómo estás?
Muy bien. You know, I listened earlier right up to the vote and I fell asleep. Listen, my answer is yes. That's a very nice
surprise. Yeah,
we're real surprised about that.
About what?
Your vote.
Surprised.
About your answer to our question.
Yeah, well,
yeah, we're real surprised.
Yeah. It's a good budget. Very good.
All right, thank you.
All right, okay.
All right, go back to sleep. Whew. Don't know how you handle that airport. I really don't know.
Looking at a video of a robbery at Starlight in Marava.
Yeah, I sent it for you. You know, again, for those that didn't, can you play it, Paul, or no?
Yeah, I ain't going through that.
All right. Some folks went into Starlight. A couple went into Starlight Pharmacy, opposite shops of Maraval last evening. And they came back to their car, and an Aqua is parked about 3 spots over. And the people went to their car, and they opened the door. The guys came out and robbed them and took the car.
Well, the wife was in the car. The husband went into the pharmacy. And when the husband came back to the car, the occupants of the car that was parked nearby just came out, put a gun to his head. He fortunately backed away. Same time, his wife took the opportunity to exit the car and they walked back and the people drove off with their car. Please be careful out there.
Yeah.
They actually waited for them. They
waited.
were actually waiting for them to come out of the pharmacy. So be careful. And I saw a recent robbery in similar fashion at Super Farm in Val Park.
Yeah, we saw that like 6 weeks ago.
So, clearly, there's an MO here, so please be careful.
Yeah, you so have to be aware of your surroundings. Your guard must be up every time.
But see, what can you do about that?
I don't know, boy.
What can you do about the fact that you stopped to go in a pharmacy? And
the two things I noticed.
You can't do anything about that.
Two things I noticed when a lot of people jump into their car. When I'm in a parking spot and I jump in the car, the first thing I do, lock the door, hit the starter, reverse, or move forward. Then when I do that is when I put on my seatbelt. I don't sit down there.
The man didn't even have a chance to jump in the car.
He didn't have a chance. The one, the robbery in Super Farm, she was in the car. But especially ladies, you take your time to drive off. Jump in the car, lock the door, move. When you move, then put on your seatbelt. Don't sit, because you're sitting there, putting on a seatbelt and checking this and that. You're a sitting duck. You're a sitting duck. So that's just my my little 2 cents. Let me take this call and message my friend. Good morning, caller.
Hi, good morning, gentlemen. Just on the poll, you can make statements.
Go ahead, make your statement.
I want to we make a rebuttal to Ms. Diego Martin. Ms. Diego Martin, you really serious about hope and prayer? And Paul, I want to thank you for picking it up, because I thought nobody would have picked it up. The government has a budget of $50-something million, and you hoping and praying? Oh my God. And then you are much older than me, ma'am, and you haven't seen what has happened in budgets in the past and could formulate an opinion about what is going on with budgets and what has actually materialized, and you still hoping and praying?
Well, why can't she hope and pray? That's her opinion.
Yeah, but that's the problem. The problem is we are so we and you know what it says? That those phrases are forged in our national anthem, you know. In the fires of hope and pray, and Trinidadians seems to be dwelling in that phrase alone. Hope and pray. Right?
Nemesis, can I ask you a question?
Go ahead.
You had breakfast yet?
I did not.
Yeah, we
go
get that.
Go and have some breakfast.
Empty vessels.
Drink a little cup of
you know what? The reality is going to hit you on one day. And you know, Paul, I know you agree with me. You know, you're just trying to be the devil's advocate. I know you agree. You share the same opinion.
You don't know that anything else in my mind. Nothing. You talk for you. Don't talk for me.
It's in radio.
Don't talk for you. Me talk for you. Have a good day, then. Go and eat a little egg and bacon.
A lot of calls coming through. Nemesis. Good morning.
Our guest is here, Steve.
Oh, yes. Okay, I was just going to call. Yabuff. Well, let's take this call. Good morning.
Yeah, man. Hey, fellas.
Yeah, quickly, Dean.
Yeah, all right. Well, I just went through the budget a quickly thing there, and as much as all the programs looking good and everything, I would have liked to see human development, not only facts of the youths who get in the programs and stuff, but the people who implement in these programs. The whole thing about Trinidad is that we have these drones, we have vehicles, but we know VENCOP ain't working well to maintain the vehicles. We know that the boat, they get in a boat, but the boats don't get maintained properly because of the turnaround either of the resources or the capacity to maintain the fire service. Same thing. But we get in new shiny things again without fixing the end part. The education system, the programs, and how you teach the programs has always been a problem. I was talking to a young person in the agricultural program that they have with UE there, and the young people were acting up, and some of them not able to, so the whole program has to take into turn that you're dealing with a specific type of young person, and the psychosocial part of training programmers and teachers to take on this new generation. I didn't see it in the budget, and That, I think, is one of the failing parts of our civilization. All right. Later, man.
Thank you.
All right.
Good morning, Brian Manning. Hey, Brian, going to eat some breakfast?
Yeah, I think he's ready.
I think he's probably drinking some water.
He's on just now. I'm
The
wondering
boss of the house probably called him.
That 5 hour plus presentation from Minister Ember
19 minutes.
Almost seemed prophetic in some ways. I wonder if Brian going to read the next budget next year.
No, that might be what, 20 minutes?
Brian Manning, good morning. Brian Manning, look your office.
Mrs. Manning, leaving him alone.
Hello, good morning.
Laptop.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear. We just can't see you. Okay, we can see you now. Good morning.
Yeah, there you are.
Good morning, Minister Manning. How are you this morning?
Good to see you.
Good to see you too.
Just take a sip of water there one more time.
Thank you for joining us this morning.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right. Budget 2025 has been presented by your substantive minister.
Yeah.
You as the minister, what I said this morning is that I thought it was a well thought out package.
Yes. I thought it was responsible.
I know. I thought it looked at the country as a whole. It looked at the areas that needed some serious attention,
yes,
including crime. There were several national security initiatives. It looked at education. It looked at the issue of school repairs. He identified the fact that the manufacturing sector is continuing to contribute significantly to GDP.
Yes.
There were questions that were answered that were in abeyance for a while, including the issue of the refinery in Pointe-a-Pierre, the VAT payments for small and medium-sized businesses, the amount of tax collected from property tax so far. And the budget was a budget, to me, not absent of politics, because it's partly a political statement of intent from the administration. Let's not be naive, right?
It couldn't be, yes.
We have to accept that any budget presented by any administration is partly fiscal and economic and partly political. It states what the government intends to do.
Of course.
What has been the response, or what have been the responses from team administration so far?
Yeah, I think it's been very positive. I mean, if you take a look at, we've had 3 successive years of growth, and that is counter to what we've seen in the rest of the region. Many of our CARICOM brothers and sisters are right now in the warm embrace of the IMF. Trinidad and Tobago is the only investment-grade country in all of the Caribbean region, and that is not by accident. It's due to the management of the economy by this administration. You look at coming out of the COVID crisis, none of our public servants lost their jobs. Everyone was paid on time, even when our revenues had fallen to almost next to nothing. And now in this budget, we have increased the minimum wage to public servants, those who fall within that category, and also have committed ourselves to paying back pay for the most recent period to the very same public servants. And I mean, that is unheard of. If you look out throughout the region, there have been mass layoffs in the public sector from Barbados to Jamaica. So it says something about the strength of our economy and the management of our economy, and that this government has the economy in general on the right path. Things are not perfect. We have our challenges, but we are doing the right things and heading in the right direction.
One of the concerns in the last fiscal, which actually materialized down just past the media review, was where Minister Imber and the Ministry of Finance pegged the oil price and the gas price. The gas price is in this budget pegged at $3.59 per MMBTU. The oil price at $77.80. I think Minister Imber would have outlined that generally for the last 6 months or so, the prices would have hovered between $91 and $80. So he went kind of in the middle. Given what happened last fiscal, and the fact that he had to recalibrate based on unrealized projections, and the budget deficit for fiscal 2024 widened a bit, do you think this is practical And he also identified the geopolitical issues and the commodity prices
Yeah.
and production levels, which contributed to us not realizing the revenues we projected last fiscal in the oil sector.
Yeah, so if you've been looking at what's been going on with the OPEC countries, you will see that Saudi Arabia had been trying desperately to set $100 a barrel oil as the floor internationally for oil. That has not happened, and I think they're finally conceding that may never happen. The United States has now become a net exporter of oil and gas, and that has dramatically changed the geopolitical issues around the energy industry globally. So we have to take those factors into consideration when coming up with our estimates. We don't expect our estimates to be perfect, but we want to have them in line with a reasonable expectation. And that's why we have lowered the price going forward in this term, because we see what is happening in the geopolitical landscape of the energy sector worldwide. And we've decided to make changes so that we are in line with that. Otherwise, we would have set an unrealistic revenue figure for our budget, and that is not beneficial to the government or anyone else.
What about go ahead, Richard?
Yeah, Minister Manning, the issue of, I think for a lot of people, we know that the budget is a document of intent, of what you intend to do. And a lot of the times, it has been our experience that sometimes some things don't materialize. And some things are repeated in the budget, but it just never came to fruition. I could take you back to a couple of budgets ago where the Minister of Finance said before the end of the year, people will have digital IDs. Never happened. You have the issue of doing
national Wi-Fi didn't happen.
Yeah, the issue of doing away with immigration cards and stuff like that, which is repeated in this budget, but which about 2 budgets ago was referenced of getting paperless, never happened. It's repeated again in this budget.
Yes.
And so, so there is a disconnect between sometimes intent and actual implementation in terms of having budgets fulfill what the intent is. It doesn't always happen.
Yes, I would say in some cases, yes, but you have to remember that many of these projects are far-reaching and they are a process. Some of those initiatives would never have been completed within 1 year, but you still have to allocate the funds to ensure that you stay within the process, that every year you have enough funds to ensure that the project keeps moving forward until completion. So something like digital ID cards or whatever, that may be a 3-year process, but you still have to allocate funds for it each year until it is completed.
Yeah, but he didn't say it was a 3-year project. So he said it was you were going to get it before the end of the year.
Things don't go as planned.
Yeah,
Okay?
so that's what I'm saying. So does the country have a problem with implementation in terms of a lot of issues, or you think the implementation problem is minor?
In some regards, but I think what we have faced in the past 5 years has mainly been a revenue issue. Coming out of COVID, the world economy has been extremely volatile, especially in the energy sector. We've had lots of changes. We had the war in Ukraine. We've had China changing its economic direction. We had the United States becoming a net exporter of oil and gas. We have Saudi Arabia deciding that they're not going to pump up the oil price globally anymore. Things change. Because if we say something on this date today, in the next 4 months, I couldn't tell you what was going to happen. So we may have said that, yes, we are going to have the revenues to do something this year, but then that may not have been the case. Also, we may have run into technical challenges in implementing some of these initiatives. You have to remember, we have an infrastructure, public service, and in some cases legislation that weren't designed for a digital or technology age. And as we go along, we implement and we make changes, we try to evolve and to make things better. But the intention is there, and you have to ensure that there's funding available to follow through with your program.
While I hear you, Minister Manning, I think at the level of government, and I understand unrealized revenues and funding challenges, but what I don't buy is that there seems an unwillingness to acknowledge there's an implementation deficit at some level, because I'm sure the government is aware of these exigent circumstances, sometimes external to our control, when they're making these plans for these budgets. And there is I don't know that there is an acknowledgement at the level that, well, if we announce 15 projects, X amount are done, and an analysis done on why the others weren't completed. And I think that is where the issue lies with me.
Let me use property taxes as an example. The previous land and building taxes tax structure had been in place since maybe for 100 years. It was that outdated and archaic of a system. Now, for us to attempt to implement an evolved and modern property tax structure, you've seen what that has taken. It's taken almost 15 years in terms of reforming the legislation, going through the legislative process, dealing with the opposition, going to court, having to get the public on board with this change because it could not have been done without them, making sure the data protection policy includes data from the various agencies so that we could properly populate the valuation role. All of these things had to be done for something that looks simple on paper, which is really changing our property tax structure. But it is not as simple as it looks.
But I don't think it looks simple. I never thought it was simple.
I
And that's a very good example. Okay, so you took 15 years, as you say, and you had several challenges, including political and legislative challenges. And then when it all comes down to it, there are challenges on the ground with dealing with the mass people who are going to try to pay property tax, who want to be compliant. And then you get that, well, at the end of October, we will go on, have online payments. Why wasn't all of that thought of before? And those are the issues that I think need to be acknowledged and dealt with.
We acknowledge it, but sometimes you aren't going to see the challenges that you face until you start working with the project. You start going through it. You realize that the legislation doesn't assist you. You realize that data protection doesn't allow you to do something that you thought you could do. You realize you have to go to Parliament and make a change. You Minister of Finance in Parliament almost every week, making an adjustment to legislation so that we can proceed forward. If you look in terms of some of the billion-dollar projects that have been proposed in this country for revenue generation in downstream energy sector, we have an EMA that I think has not been designed to really manage multiple billion-dollar projects at the same time. And we've had constant complaints from various administrations about the speed in which some of these projects can receive a certificate of environmental clearance. But the agencies that we had weren't structured to do some of the things that we want to do in this technology age. But of course, we meet the problem, we try to fix it, but you run into challenges, and we work as quickly as we can to try to work through those challenges so that we can move forward.
Let's look at the rationale behind what the government allocated to the major ministries. Of course, health topping the scale at 7.57 billion, education second, national security third. Let's focus on national security because I think most people would agree that crime is probably the most critical issue facing the country as a whole. And there were several initiatives outlined, including the intended purchase of craft cruisers for the Coast Guard, etc. More police cars and drones.
Yes.
In the next fiscal, are there specific timelines attached to those announcements, or are those things still being worked out, where the population will see these initiatives as announced and with funding provided for in the budget rolling out in the next couple of months? Because it's not alien to us that we are in an election year.
Yeah, dealing with crime is a multi-pronged approach. The budgetary allocation of national security is just a part of it. The easy part is purchasing national security assets. We've also allotted a large part of the budget towards education, also to social development. We want to ensure that our young people have at least a strong educational base so that they are not too tempted to enter that life of crime. Also, our social safety net is also designed to ensure that the most vulnerable amongst us also have a chance at upward mobility and to living a straight and narrow life in Trinidad and Tobago. So it's a multi-pronged approach. The funding to national security is mainly for purchasing assets for dealing with the current situation. And I would say by January 1st, which is when many of the major aspects of the budget are implemented, you should see that many of those assets have been purchased.
While I think it's noble, I will tell you that I have it on good account that while these monies have been now allocated via the budget, and certainly if all goes as normal will be passed. The police service in particular is having procurement issues getting printer ink and basic administrative things in the service. So I'm hoping that the systems are in place for the procurement of these major pieces of infrastructure, because then we will get another challenge going down the road.
And as I said earlier, and that's the issues that we've been having. We want to implement, the country's been calling for renewed procurement legislation for how long now? A long time. But of course, with that implementation, it's not a perfect system. You're going to run into challenges, and then you're going to see us coming back to Parliament to make adjustments to the legislation, because it's one thing to have something on paper. It's another thing when you have to implement it within the real world. And then you see the challenges that presents, and it's a living, evolving document, as is much of our legislation. So as we run into challenges, we have to caucus, discuss it, cabinet, public consultation, and then we make changes that we believe will make the legislation more applicable and workable. So I don't think the police service is going to have a challenge with some of those resources that you mentioned for much longer, because we recognize the issue. We have been making adjustments to the procurement legislation as we said we would, and that is going to be taken care in due course.
Well, beyond the energy sector, which has its own particular, I suppose, what should I call it? Its own particular
nuances
that would be articulated, I am sure, very eloquently by Minister Young, who has been at the forefront of a lot of what has been taking place in the Ministry of Energy. So beyond the energy sector, you have the non-energy sector, and of course there was certain things announced. I think some of the people who were talking post the budget yesterday talked about that they wish they wanted to see some more. Well, they were saying the devil is in the details in terms of how do you grow the non-energy oil sector even more and more to contribute to the GDP of the country. Is there any particular item in the budget that you feel confident as the junior minister in the Ministry of Finance is going to take our GDP forward with regard to the non-energy sector? And if there is, what is it?
One of the major focuses of this government has always been boosting the SME sector within Trinidad and Tobago. And you're seeing the results of that in terms of the growth that we have seen in the non-energy sector in Trinidad and Tobago. The one good thing about challenging times, which we have come out of due to COVID, due to the crash in energy prices in 2016, is that people become more resilient and more creative. And you're seeing that within our non-energy sector numbers. The non-energy sector has shown growth every year outside of the COVID years since this government has been in charge. And that is because we've implemented numerous policies. We have funding with the banks. We have NEDCO that we can support entrepreneurs through the Ministry of Youth Development. There are also programs that will guide young people. The Central Bank has programs. The Ministry of Trade and Industry. And I believe many of those programs are benefiting entrepreneurs in this country. We also have the Exim Bank, which the government has been supporting in terms of supporting the manufacturing sector, because the manufacturing sector is the main earner of foreign exchange outside of the energy sector. So we are ensuring that persons involved in industries that generate foreign exchange are also supported by having access to that foreign exchange that they need to stay in business. So we have implemented a host of policies to boost the non-energy sector and the SME sector in Trinidad and Tobago. And what you've seen in this budget is simply a continuation of those programs.
Well, I have, of course, would be passionate about the creative sector. And even though the creative sector is always kind of mentioned in passing, I always find in budgets. And I know it's always mentioned in passing. And the Trade and Investment Promotion Agency, under which you have now put all of these creative agencies, I'm not so sure it's a good decision, but we'll have to wait and see. Because to me, it just increases more bureaucracy in terms of accessing whatever system.
But also the synergies between those industries.
Well, that's your opinion. I'm saying that my opinion is I think it just becomes more for behemoth. We love behemoths in the Caribbean, English-speaking Caribbean generally. We love them. Okay. And it's now become a behemoth with several agencies coming under it. Of course, we haven't yet spoken to directors of that agency. I know we have reached out. But anyway, we haven't spoken to anybody to get a sense of where that's going. I didn't hear much about it in the budget. Maybe I missed it, but I didn't hear much reference to it, which of course it connects to the creative sector, which goes back to the part that it's always said in passing. I know from a creative sector practitioner, sometimes there are certain grants or tax benefits and stuff that you can access. I'm not talking about film, I'm talking about theater. But the process to access a lot of these things are tedious and invasive, and really a lot of the creative sector just doesn't bother. We are accustomed being on our own. We are accustomed fighting for ourselves, unlike other ones that are paid attention to, whether it be bands and calypso and soca and whatever. The rest of the creative sector, whether it be theater and dance, we fight up. Or other performing artists, whether it be choirs and stuff, you fight up.
Yeah, but let me just say that the Minister of Finance yesterday basically gave a broad overview of what is being done in this budget. As crazy as that sounds, after speaking for 5 hours and 10 minutes, I believe, you're going to hear more about the details in these sectors coming from the various ministers who will speak in the budget debate starting next week. We have the leader of the opposition speaking on Friday. And from next week, we're going to have the individual ministers go into more detail as to what these allocations are for and what they're going to do. I do know the Ministry of Trade and Industry has a plethora of grant programs for various aspects of the creative industry. Also the Ministry of Tourism and also has been doing a lot to facilitate the creative sector and to really tie the creative sector to tourism and international opportunities. So there's a lot that is being done, and I would think you would hear more about that going forward as the individual ministers talk about how their budget allocations will be spent.
Wendell was on the program earlier, and well, he had something important to do at 7.
He had to go and sleep. Don't pretend.
But he had something important to do at 7. I don't know what he has to do. You could say what.
Say he was going to sleep.
But he had something important to do at 7. But he did bring up the issue of housing, and he said he felt that he didn't hear enough about housing, the building of new housing and stuff, which is always an issue. And I told him I did remember that the minister talking about the increase in the base housing price and stuff like that. So I don't know if you could clarify what was said about housing, if there was anything said, and maybe I'll be a little clearer, because it was something that went.
The Ministry of Housing has been doing some fantastic work, and really I want to pay special compliment to the Minister of Housing and the Minister in the Ministry of Housing. The HVIP program, or Home Village Improvement Program, is really one of the success stories of this government. And the government will build a starter home for some of the most vulnerable people in Trinidad and Tobago, many of them living in squatting communities and so on. A starter home for absolutely free. It will be free of charge. It's a simple concrete structure with plumbing and with electricity. So we've been rolling out that program across Trinidad and Tobago. I can tell you for a fact that Aflando East, it has been extremely effective and has been well received. One of the challenges that we had is that the margins were so small that many of the contractors were having a challenge in terms of making any sort of profit on the program. So we decided to build a better structure and to also increase some of the margin involved so that it will become more attractive to contractors so that we can build more of these homes for some of the more vulnerable persons in the country. Also, the Ministry of Housing would be involved in a program of refurbishing many of the HTC communities across Trinidad and Tobago. We had huge housing stock, but many of the houses were not habitable at the point in time. We want to ensure that the stock that we have right now is improved, it is refurbished, and is made available to the people of Trinidad and Tobago for allocation as quickly as possible. So that is the main driver of the Ministry of Housing at this point in time. And in some communities, there will be construction of new homes, but there are many houses out there that are being refurbished, and we want to make those available as quickly as possible.
One of the things you mentioned earlier on is the issue of property tax, and the Minister of of Finance mentioned, or he gave an update as at Friday, the 20th of September, 89,000 residential property owners paid property tax. I think that's a strong start. I don't know if you agree.
I'm impressed, to be honest, and I'm grateful to people.
And it's ongoing because this is the end of the month. That should have increased, totaling $91 million in revenue. You would have been on the show a couple of weeks ago and indicated there are 400,000 eligible properties for eligible for taxation.
Residential in total.
Residential.
But it would
which
be
means
97,000 tax notices that would have been sent out.
Right. Which means that this 89, this 91 million represents under a quarter of the potential revenue from that. Would that be correct?
It's for all 400,000, yes.
For all 400,000 were collected. So let's just say you collect three-quarters of it. You're on the road to collecting $300 or so million.
Yes.
Would that be correct? Those general numbers, right?
That region. That sounds as an approximation, of course.
Right. Now, the minister also identified that property taxes collected will be distributed to local government bodies for the following: maintenance of local roads, drains, public facilities, including recreation grounds, cemeteries, etc., development programs, and the provision of local services. It's been collected, an announcement made on 91 million in revenue. Of course, this should be concentrated in particular areas, depending on who paid and how the continued assessments go, rolling out over the next couple of months. What can the public expect in terms of starting to receive services? Because these 89,000 people who pay now want services.
Yes.
You understand? And they are not going to be kind and say, well, the regional corporation messing up, or they don't have backhoe, or they don't have this, because they have been compliant and done what the law requires them to do.
Yes. The people of Trinidad and Tobago, we aren't exactly known for our patience, but in this situation, you have to understand that the collection of the property taxes would be just the beginning of the overall process. Of course, next comes the reform of local government and how those services are provided. As I said, it has to be something to be done in tandem. We have to have the funding first available before we can implement some of the reforms. So as we start to collect the property taxes, and we are certain that that is being done, and those revenues are received and available, we will come back to Parliament to implement elements of the local government reform legislation to ensure that those funds are now accessible to the various regional local government bodies so that they can do the work that they're promised to do.
$5 billion also deficit. The minister identified the government doesn't see the value in keeping the CLICO assets. Are the Republic Bank shares included in that?
No, this is CLICO. This is the insurance company. The Republic Bank would have been under CF Financial.
Okay.
And those assets are tied to the NIF fund. So this is CLICO is the insurance company. It does part of CF Financial.
Only the CLICO part. And also the issue of, well, there's speculation. I'm using it with speculation that the Prime Minister confirmed that an assessment has been done on TSTT. He said there's no consideration right now. Is that being considered also as something the government is looking to divest?
That's something the Prime Minister would have to speak with the national community. I have not heard anything about any divestment of TSTT or any other state enterprise, other than the ones that were announced in yesterday's budget. CLICO is definitely something that the Minister of Finance has mentioned will be divested, and that is to recover some of the billions of dollars that were given to CF, not given, but used towards the bailout of CF Financial to ensure that it did not present a systemic risk to the people of this country and to people of the Caribbean region. You have to remember, CF Financial was one of the largest economic players in all of CARICOM. They were the largest landowners in all of CARICOM. And if they were allowed to collapse, it would have presented a severe economic issue for all of CARICOM. It would have meant mass layoffs across the region and also other challenges. So the government stepped in, bailed out CF Financial, and is now trying to recover the funds used to protect the people of this country and the CARICOM region.
Well, the Minister of Finance talked about financing the $5 billion plus deficit in this budget, and he talked particularly about selling out those assets. And he talked about, for example, Magdalena, but he didn't really go beyond a couple references. So there has to be, because those references he made, I am assuming there has to be more assets that are going to be disposed of in the state network that would.
Why would you assume that? But the $5 billion deficit is not going to be made entirely through divestment. A lot of it is going to be debt financing. This is a deficit budget, and usually how deficits are made up for is through debt, through borrowing money. So whatever is not made up through the divestment, the rest is going to be made up through debt, through borrowing.
So borrowing is going to be part of that $5 billion financing. Is that what you're saying?
As it has always been in any deficit budget, and we've been running deficit budgets in Trinidad and Tobago since 2009, I believe, since the global financial crisis. We have been doing so. We have a plan and a goal to get to a point where we no longer are running deficit budgets, but that is something that has to be done over time, or it could create severe issues.
How far in our debt service ratio is the government willing to go?
We still have one of the best debt to GDP ratios within all of CARICOM. Some of the most indebted countries in the Western Hemisphere are in the CARICOM region. Trinidad and Tobago is still well within the international markers for debt to GDP ratio, and we feel quite comfortable with where we are as an economy. And also the various international rating agencies also feel comfortable with where we are as an economy, and that's why we are the only investment grade country in all of CARICOM and one of the few in Latin America and the Caribbean in general. So we are well within the global benchmarks, and we feel that we're in a comfortable position to also maintain our quality of life, but also to increase the growth that we've seen in the previous 3 years within this.
So you think we have enough latitude to with regard to that debt to GDP ratio?
It's not what I think. It's what the international agencies are.
No, I'm asking your opinion because you're a junior minister in the Ministry of Finance.
Yeah, and my opinion,
you must have a sense of government's policy and the direction.
My opinion is based on the international benchmarks, which say that we are in a good position in terms of debt to GDP ratio, where we can maintain our quality of life and also boost economic growth of Trinidad and Tobago.
If I had buffet, so you'd come at me.
No, I said
you'd take more umbrage if I did buffet like Ragoobarsingh buffet.
My point is that it's facts over feelings. It's irrelevant what I feel about.
I am being facetious, Brian Manning, Minister Manning.
Says that we are doing well. Okay.
One of the issues also that this administration has been working to me assiduously toward is the issue of leakages of revenue. Property tax is one part. The Revenue Authority has not been given the absolute green light to me, given the Privy Council ruling that it's not unconstitutional.
Another issue that's being delayed by
right. But okay,
frivolous lawsuits. Yes.
Right. So we're over that hill now, right?
Yes.
How much do you think that aspect of it will now add to closing the deficit one, and how soon, given how, to me, strong the start of the residential property tax regime has been, can the population expect now to move to commercial and industrial revenue tax collection?
So you're asking about the TTRA or?
The TTRA in the context of collecting not only residential property tax, but also commercial and industrial property taxes.
Well, the TTRA is really developed to democratize the tax collection system and modernize tax collection in Trinidad and Tobago, and that's one of the things I've been talking to you about. We would have been trying to implement the TTRA as far back as I remember 2005, because of all of the legal loopholes and wrangling and lawsuits. Here we are today. But what it is going to do is ensure that some of the large players in Trinidad and Tobago that have been dodging taxes for an extended period of time are now brought to heel and made to pay their fair share. It is not an organization that's going to be designed to really go after some of the smaller players in the economy, but some of the larger players. And you've seen it in the media in the past few months, where there are several large players that have not been paying their just due in taxes for quite some time. The TTRA is going to ensure that does not go unpenalized, and it should also democratize and make more efficient.
One of those outstanding taxpayers is more than what you collected in property tax so far. One.
Yeah,
exactly. You know that? One of those is more than how much? The 80 how much ever thousand that
Correct.
pay residential property tax.
Correct.
One
That's
of those
about,
commercial
80,000 people, right? 80,000 people.
Imagine that.
So, and that's what we're trying to eliminate. Some of these guys have been, you put an extra burden on the people that are compliant. But if you democratize the system and ensure everyone pays their fair share, over time, you can reduce the tax burden per person and lower tax rates for the general public. But you have to ensure that everyone is paying their fair share to be able to do that. And
that's my question. When is that going to start? The commercial regime and industrial.
I couldn't give you an exact timing. As I said, you never know what happens in terms of the lawsuits and consultation and other legislation that may also come to bear on this issue. So I don't have an estimate. I haven't heard one.
If you get 5 like that one we're talking about, if we get 5 like that, you get $1 billion in tax between residential and commercial.
And you can be sure that there are more guys out there that have not been paying their taxes. And those are the...
If you get 5 of them, 5 like that one.
Correct. And that can be used for local government services to ensure that potholes are filled, people's drains are repaired, retaining walls, garbage collection, all of these issues that we have. And we want to ensure that local government bodies are properly funded and are able to account for the funding that they receive.
What can we expect for this $1.41 billion that is being allocated to transport? I notice they separated infrastructure and transport this year. Is there a reason for that? Because PTSD to me is an abysmal failure. That's my opinion. Abysmal.
Mm-hmm. Another element that is going to require reform, in my view. We separated the two because much of our public transportation system is subsidized, right? The air bridge is subsidized, PTSC is subsidized, the sea bridge is subsidized. So those are under special consideration. Now, in terms of those, we are looking for more efficiency, and that's why it's basically separated there. So we are working to make these agencies more efficient so that we can reduce the subsidy without affecting the quality of.
But that public transportation issue, particularly with PTSC, that separate Cal and the Sea Bridge, is closely tied to levels of productivity and wastage also. Would you agree with that?
Agreed, yes.
So is special emphasis going to be placed on reforming PTSC then?
All of those agencies, all of the transportation agencies. And as you see, we have an issue with traffic in Trinidad and Tobago. So we have to, give people reasons to not use cars or leave their cars at home and to use the public transportation system. But that comes with a certain level of efficiency. And we have to ensure that we manage costs in doing that. So it is being worked on. It's something that does take quite a bit of doing, but it's something that we have seen as an issue here, and we are going to focus on working on it and improving it.
I just want to ask a question. It's related to something that somebody in one of the comments coming out of the stream of people watching the interview, with regard to Film TT, which is now part of that behemoth, as I said. They were talking about the issue of cameras and stuff for the film sector, because the film sector is pretty vibrant. You have a lot of creatives in that sector trying to do work, and the issue of duty-free and VAT-free access to all of the types of cameras that you can bring into the country.
Yeah.
I don't think at this point they are VAT-free or tax-free in terms of entering. I don't know if you can weigh in on that, whether they in fact are or are not, and whether there is any consideration to give more concessions in terms of getting our film sector, moving even more forward than it already is.
Yeah, I don't have details on that, but I'm sure the Minister of Trade and Industry, that's something that she would discuss during her contribution in the parliamentary debate. I do know that yesterday, I think there was tax exemption on all sporting equipment. That was done. Electric cars also is also exempt from taxation.
Yeah, accessories on electric cars.
Yes. So we have been working gradually to bring certain categories that we think are beneficial to Trinidad and Tobago under that tax exemption safety net. So I wouldn't be surprised to see that imported items for film would also eventually come under that category. So, but that's something that the Minister in Trade and Industry would have to.
Minister Manning, is the government concerned about capital flight, and do you have a sense of how much capital flight is taking place?
I don't have an exact number on me, but of course, capital flight is something that we'd always be concerned with. It's part of managing the general economy, and we attempt to manage our balance of payments and also the exchange rate. All of that would factor into with capital flight. So it is something we are concerned about. We try to manage the situation as much as possible, and that requires accountability by many of the players within our economy. And that's something that we are concerned about. That's something that we look at along with the central bank on every single day, I would say.
Is there a quantification of it? Because the information I have is that because of some levels of uncertainty and also the crime situation, that there are many business people who access US Forex and palm it off into foreign accounts for safety nets.
That would be difficult in our system. What I think has been happening is that persons have been generating US dollar revenues internationally and then keeping those funds abroad. It's far more difficult to take funds out of the system and export it abroad with the current banking system. So that is something that we have been looking at. I know exactly with the Exim Bank, if you access foreign exchange as a manufacturer, another business person qualifies, that you have to bring those funds back onshore in Trinidad and Tobago, so it becomes part of this economy. But it is something that we're looking at. It is a challenge in terms of keeping a balance in this economy so that we can manage the exchange rate and other factors. So it is something that we're concerned with and we pay attention to regularly.
Well, it's now about 8 a.m., so this is where we're going to have to end it.
Yeah, but before you go, Minister, I just want to bring this issue up. And it is the issue, I'm bringing up PTSD because you're not going to drive the bus. So you're going to give a directive.
No one has asked me.
Yeah, no. It's a good thing you don't drive a bus. No, but isn't it a directive to get this system up and running properly? And two, the state of Citygate. Does that ever come up in conversations?
All of it. But of course, as I tell you, we have had revenue challenges for the past few years. So we have to be very, what's the word I'm looking for? We have to be very thoughtful in exactly how it is we spend our funds. Yes, there are lots of things.
Yeah, but Minister,
we would like to do. Hold on, let me finish. There are lots of things that we would like to do across Trinidad and Tobago, but it comes down to, do we have the funding to focus on that just yet? And if we don't, what do we have to cut to ensure that this other project gets funded? So it is a balancing act, and it's one that we have been working on really managing effectively over the past few years.
Yeah, but Citygate, but more people pass through, more citizens of this country pass through Citygate than even the airport.
Yes.
And this is about us.
Yes, and it's a major part of our transportation system.
It's a major part of our transportation system, and it's about us.
Yeah, there's no reform of the overall system without taking care of Citygate. I totally agree.
And it should be spectacular because it's for us.
Agreed. Understand.
Not only that, Minister, school children and senior citizens ride the bus for free. A lot of households, especially for school children, when they watch their pennies, how they spend it on a daily, the bus is crucial to them saving some money. So I think that PTSD system, give the directive. If they cannot fulfill that, find somebody that will fulfill it for the citizenry of this country. East,
Understood.
West, North, and South.
Understood.
Mr. Mani, thanks for being with us this morning. We appreciate your time.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you, guys. Thank you for having me.
Thanks a lot.
Trinidad and Tobago. I hope.
Tell Mrs. Manning hello for us.
I will. I hope you take the time to go through the budget and take a look at what's going on, and then see what is being done there to benefit the people of this country. Really appreciate your time this morning. Thank you.
Thank you for spending some time with us. Appreciate it.
You'll have a great day. Be safe.
All right, so theater is on this weekend at Sapa on Saturday and Sunday. Saturday at 8:30, Sunday at 6:30. That's Extravagant News heads to south after Queen's Hall over the weekend. Of course, tickets will be on sale at the Sapa box office from tomorrow, 12 noon to 6 p.m. daily. And tickets are also available at K-Squared Fashions, at C3 Center, Gulf City, and Brentwood Mall, Chagonas, and Fens of Marabella by the Roundabout. Looking forward to Southerners coming out to That's Extravagant News this weekend in Sapa. It is so much fun. Have a fantastic day, whatever you do, and remember to smile and laugh. It is great for your health. First day of October.
Yeah. Of course, today is also the birthday of former President Jimmy Carter, as he celebrates his 100th birthday in hospice, but he's celebrating his birthday. All right. Let's get into our 8 o'clock news brief. If he is in.
This is your news bulletin from Power 102 Digital.
It is time for 8 o'clock news update. I'm Avril Cynthia Bab. Good morning. Many of our Caribbean neighbors are in the warm embrace of the IMF, not so with Trinidad and Tobago, and that is due in large part to the government's management of the country's finances. This is the comment from Minister in the Ministry of Finance, Brian Manning, who spoke on the Power Breakfast Show this morning. Finance Minister Com Imbert yesterday delivered a budget package with salary increases and other sweeteners for public servants in an overall $59.7 billion package. The 2025 budget was based on an oil price of US $77.80, a natural gas price of US $3.59 per MMBTU. Revenue projected at $54.224 billion and expenditures at $59.741 billion. The budget will be a deficit of $5.51 billion. Minister Manning said this morning that the United States has now become a major exporter of oil and gas, and this has changed the market. He said this has had to be taken into consideration by the government when crafting the budget. The American Chamber of Industry and Commerce, or rather the American Chamber of Trinidad and Tobago, says it appreciates the Ministry of Finance's ongoing attempt to craft a budget that strives to balance economic revitalization with the challenges of prolonged reduced revenue while ensuring the preservation of an adequate social safety net. It notes, on the positive side, the acknowledgement of the magnitude of the impact that crime is having on the economy, and the focus on reducing home invasions and crimes on businesses is welcomed. Meanwhile, AmCham commented on the budgeted oil price, the group saying it seems reasonable based on similar forecasts from reputable energy forecasting agencies, and the more important revenue source, the estimated natural gas price, seems reasonable, especially with the new pricing arrangements following the restructuring of Atlantic LNG. It is grateful the government has committed to clearing up outstanding VAT refunds and has acknowledged the manner in which this was done for the major energy companies in the past had unintended and negative effects. And the Energy Chamber of Trinidad and Tobago says it welcomes news by the Minister of Finance that he and the Minister of Energy and Energy Industries will meet with the Energy Chamber in the next few months in order to finalize details of changes to the fiscal regime for the upstream energy sector to be introduced in the Finance Act 2025. It looks forward to detailed discussions on changes to the oil and gas taxation regime, which will further incentivize investment into new oil and gas production. Well, that was your update to 8 o'clock. Look out for news in full at 12 noon.
Up to date and credible. Power 102 Digital.
Legislation sets the tone for how we treat each other as a society. It provides those boundaries and the expectations, and it also upholds the rights of all of the citizens.
Legislation is important for everyone in society as it sets rules and regulations that create an organized, safe and fair environment in which everyone is equal.
They form the opinion that because you have a disability, that you are somehow unintelligent, stupid, ridiculously asinine, you name it. So legislation is quite important, and I hope that legislation is soon coming so that people with disabilities can be who they are. People first, disabilities after.
Marlene says good morning as well. Thank you all so much for inviting me here. It's great to be here.
All right, wonderful. Thank you for joining us.
Yes, thank you for joining us. Mike, we can call you Mike, right?
Yes, please.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, I call my son Mikey, so but
I prefer Mike, not Michael.
You prefer Mike. All right, we'll do Mike then.
We'll do Mike.
Good morning, Mike. There are a couple of welcome changes coming up at the U.S. Embassy in Port of Spain. First of all, We like the fact that they can be there'll be now online payments for tourist visas. Is that so? Let's hear more about that.
Yes, that's one of the things we're very excited about. You can still pay at Scotiabank if you like, but now, and most people do this now, is you can pay using a credit card, you can pay online. That makes the process of applying for a visa a little bit easier. And something else that we're very excited and proud of is, the wait time to get an interview has really gone down. We've done a lot of work these last couple of years. 2 years ago, around this time, it was about 340 days, due to the pandemic. But we've gotten that down to where it's just, it's just a couple of weeks now, and sometimes even less. So this is a great time to apply for a visa if you want to travel to the United States. The process shouldn't take you very long. I still think, do it as early as you can. But it'll take you a lot less time than it would before.
Mike, I know that the U.S. officials are not obligated to give an explanation or reason as to why they would have refused a visa. But I'll give you an example of someone who recently applied, a girl who recently applied, and she said she had all her documents, and she was asked two questions. One, is she married? She said no. Mind you, she lives common law with someone for the last 5 years. And then she was asked if she have any children, and she said no, and that was it. She was refused the visa. Explain what should someone do in an instant like that? Are they allowed to give an explanation as to that I am living common law with someone for more than 5 years? The person is a serving member of the TTPS, and they're steady and whatnot. Should that explanation be forthcoming?
Well, I can't speak about individual cases. I can only talk, generally about the visa interview. And before I give a more specific answer, I just want to make sure that people know that, by far the majority of our applicants are approved for the visas, about 75%. So 3 out of every 4 do get the visa. But basically what we're looking for in the interview is that you have a situation here in Trinidad or Tobago, ties that will compel you to return after a short visit, and that when you're in the United States temporarily, you'll properly use the visa. On a tourist visa, you can't work, you can't study. So those are the things that we're looking for. But as for the common law marriage, that's very common. And yes, please, do say I am in a common law marriage. We understand that that's a common situation here, and people can be, we have cases where people have been common law married for 20, 25 years. They have 3 or 4 kids, and, that's the same as a real marriage, as a regular marriage. So yes, that is a fact that you do. If you're asked that question, you certainly do want to give that answer.
Right. Okay. I appreciate that, because the person also owns a property here too. I neglected to mention that.
Yeah. I have another question too, because they asked me that this week. So let me throw it out to you. He's a 20-year-old chap. He is employed. He has nothing under his name. And he asked me, can he apply for a U.S. visa? And I said, yes, you can. I said, when are you going to travel? He said he does not know, but he just wants to get a U.S. visa in case his aunt wants him to come up. He doesn't have to go through the process. But then he asked me what he should carry to the embassy that they will need. I said, well, first you have to go online and make an appointment, and they'll contact you with a date and time and so on. And I also told him carry whatever documentation you have, such as, the only thing he would have would be a job letter and where he lives. Is there anything he needs? And can someone actually apply for a visa not knowing when they travel?
Yes, you can. But just, you have to give an honest answer to the interviewing officer and say, I don't have any immediate plans, but in the future I will be traveling, to visit my aunt or for another reason. And as for documentation, anything that you think that shows that, your ties, that you have a good situation here in Trinidad, you're welcome to bring that. But I will say in a lot of cases, the officer won't look at the documentation. It's really based on the interview, the questions and answers. And then sometimes, yes, we will ask for a job letter, and because the interview is the most important part. And I would like to say one thing about documentation is unfortunately we have seen an uptick in people with fake documents. We have seen people with false job letters, with fake bank statements, and this can, we've got a very good fraud team at the embassy, and we're getting very good at detecting that. So we really, it's not a good idea to do this. We've been working in partnership with the TTPS, and submitting fake documentation is against the law here in Trinidad. So if you try to do that, you might not only not get the visa and be ineligible for a visa for the rest of your life, but you might get in trouble with the local law enforcement as well. So, we do look at documents occasionally, but the most important part is the interview. And if you are going to bring documents, make sure that, everything on there is the truth. Don't try to pass something off.
Do not underestimate the long reach of Uncle Sam.
Well, it's our partners in the local law enforcement have been very helpful with this because it's breaking local law to claim that you have to claim that you're a police officer when you're not, or to submit a fake a made up bank statement is against the law here. So. They've been the TTPS has been very, very great in working with us on that.
Tell us about the relaunch of the STEP for STEP for American citizens.
Thank you. Thank you for asking that. That's very important. We do have a lot of American citizens here in Trinidad. Most of them are dual nationals. And the STEP program, the Smart Traveler Enrollment Program, is the method by which we can be in contact with them. We'll send them out messages with information. If they're, during the hurricane a few months ago, we sent out a lot of messages. And we're moving to a new STEP model, an upgraded, better program. But what it means is that people have to re-register with us. They need to go to step.state.gov. And even if you're registered now, in about 3 or 4 weeks, the registration will no longer be valid. So you've got to go there and register once again. And that way you'll get all the messages that we need to send out. And if we need to get in touch with you for some reason, we'll have your contact information.
So the new process is already active.
It is active, but for a couple more weeks, the old process, the old registration will still be valid. But around October 16th or 17th, I believe, it'll only the new people that have re-registered will be getting our messages. So it's very important for all of our U.S. citizens here to do that. And another reminder for U.S. citizens, you may have heard we have an election coming up in about 6 weeks. Very important election, and so you can vote from Trinidad. You can do what's called an absentee ballot, but you really need to look into it if you haven't started the process yet. You go to fvap.gov, fvap.gov. And then, in the U.S. elections, every state has sort of a different process. So you'll go to that website and you'll put in the state that you live in, where you're resident, and it'll explain the process to you for being able to vote in the election from Trinidad. So I encourage all American citizens, it's your duty to vote. Go, if you haven't started the process, please do. Please start it today.
And just repeat the website one more time.
fvap.gov, fvap.gov.
Michael, can we go back a bit to the online payment for tourist visas? Is it active now, or is it coming up in the near future?
Oh, it's active. It's been active already about 6 months. Okay, and yeah, I would say maybe, I don't have the exact numbers, but I'd say about 2/3 of our applicants are now paying online. They're not having to take the trip to the bank. So it makes the process a little bit easier.
Can dual citizens vote in the upcoming election, Mr. Matt?
Yes. Anybody who's an American citizen, doesn't matter whether you have another nationality or not, you're eligible to vote. You just need to get the information and get the process going.
Okay.
What are some of the process for application for the American visa is now an online filling out of a form. So you go online, am I correct? And it's quite an extensive form, because you could pause it and take a while and come back and take a cup of coffee or whatever and do it, because it's
there are a couple steps. There are a couple steps.
There are a number of steps.
No doubt. Right? So first you need to go online, and you can start at the embassy website. Just search U.S. Embassy, Port of Spain, and click on visas. You go online and you fill out an online application. And once you've done that, then you'll register at our appointment website, and then you pay the fee, which you can now do online, and then you'll get an appointment. And a lot of people now, they don't need to come in for the interview. They can do what we call the interview waiver process. When you're on our website, our appointment website, you'll be asked a couple of questions, a series of questions, and depending on how you answer that, you'll either be asked to come in for an interview, or you'll be able to submit your documents via TT Post.
I'm glad you mentioned who is eligible, because I know a couple who were renewing visas and who had documents inside, and they were able to access that non-interview option. Is there an eligibility criteria for that from the embassy's perspective?
Yes, there is. And generally, there's always some exceptions, but generally, if you've had a visa that expired less than 4 years ago, then you don't need to come in for an interview. Like I said, there'll be some exceptions, but in almost every case, you won't be required to come in for an interview. It's just important that you answer the questions properly on the appointment website, because we do get people that come in for interviews that really don't need to be there.
Right. So, and I'll give you an example of that one, because it happened to me myself, because I've always had the benefit of a U.S. visa over the years. And I had applied, and I had also applied for that
interview waiver.
But it didn't allow me, and it asked me to come in. So I went in there, and I was literally asked nothing. I presented my passport. Okay, Mr. Stephen, thank you, and that was it. I got my visa back in DHL, through DHL.
Okay, yeah, it is. It is a little complicated. There's about 7 or 8 questions that you'll be asked.
Mm-hmm.
They're yes/no questions, and you don't need to answer the same answer. It's not all yes or all no. Sometimes people think that, and there's one particular question that's asking you if you have any an annotation on your visa, if there's any writing on your visa. And people unfortunately answer that incorrectly. In most cases, there isn't writing on your visa, but there'll be, if there is, there'll be like a separate message saying, traveling for a certain purpose, going to Miami. But if there's nothing like that on there, then the answer to that question would be no. So some people do get that question wrong.
I've noticed too, Mike, that in some instances, when you enter the United States, they don't even stamp your passport anymore. They just ask you to go before the camera, and they just fold your passport, have a good day, and that's it. What would cause something like that?
Okay, well, that's immigration. That's a different part of the government.
Okay.
But they do have a lot of electronic things now. They're doing a lot of it electronically now. So, your entry is still being put down, is still being recorded. It's a much easier process.
It's much less people and stuff involved.
Yeah, hopefully someday we'll get away from having paper visas at all. That's a goal of the State Department, but it's we're not there yet.
You mentioned the waiver option for interview and some of the common mistakes. What are some of the other common mistakes people make when filling out that online form for the appointment generally? Because it's a long form, it's intense, and I guess people, if they don't understand the questions being asked, they can make some mistakes. So can you identify some of the common mistakes people make in terms of what they're filling out?
Well, what we see is, this is on the application itself.
Yes.
Is that a lot of people don't fill out the application themselves. They go to a service, and a lot of those services are fine. If they're going to cost, you're going to pay where you can do it yourself. And if you're not great on the computer, you can have your daughter or your son or your grandchild help you fill that out. That's what we really encourage. But sometimes some of these services will put in answers that they think are better, but may not be the truth. And that can get you in trouble. They may change your job salary, or they may change, your position, or how long you stayed in the United States. And the applicant is responsible for everything that's on that application. So if you are using a service to fill out your application, be sure that everything that they write down on there is correct and is the truth, because you're responsible for that.
That's important information, and what you just said is very important because you're right. I think a lot of people embellish some of those applications because they think it will work in your favor.
And no, it won't.
Yeah.
I mean, the truth is the best.
Yes.
Like I said, 75% of our applicants are getting visas. Most people are. And if you do not tell us the truth, there's a very good chance we're going to find out. We've been doing this for a long time, and then you really hurt your chances of ever being able to.
Including, have you filled out this form on your own or with the assistance of someone? I think that's one of the checkoff questions.
Yes, if somebody else fills it out, they
Yeah.
need to write. The person needs to write in their name. Whoever filled out the form, if it's not the applicant themselves.
Yeah.
You know what's another question, Mike, that I think that dissuades a lot of people, and they think they're not going to get a visa. And I had spoken to a U.S. immigration lawyer about it at one point. Considering somebody would ask me the question, being a lawyer, I wasn't sure. They ask you about offenses, if you've ever been arrested, not convicted. If you've ever been arrested, and sometimes, of course, in a Trinidad and Tobago situation, you can have what's the best way to put it?
Arrests that don't lead to convictions.
Arrests that don't lead to convictions, and arrests that can be somewhat vindictive at times, emanating from the TTPS.
Yeah, we understand that. We do have, we ask that question because then we want to see how the case played out. And if the case was dismissed, if you were found not guilty, then it's not an ineligibility, but we will need to see that. So, if you have been arrested, I really encourage you to bring along court documents that show the.
But if you've been not arrested and not charged, there's no court document involved.
If you were arrested, you should still. If you were, I mean,
you
there still has to be
not
some kind of
charged.
document showing that they didn't charge you.
Yeah.
There's some documentation, from the police, if not from the court, showing that you were never charged for anything.
I don't think there is, Mike. I don't think there is a document that tells you that you've not been charged. You'll not be.
Well, you can ask for your police record.
Yeah. Well, right.
You can ask for a record, yes. And we'll have
It would indicate that there is no. You're right. It would indicate there is no conviction.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I mean, the question just means that we want to see, how the case played out and what the final result was. And if you're not convicted, then that doesn't make you ineligible for a visa.
Right. Well, let's extend that question a little further. You've been arrested, you've been charged, but your conviction is let's say community service or community work. It's not a hard conviction. How do you treat with a matter like that?
Well, that gets into the very specifics of U.S. immigration law, so it's a complicated question, and we'd probably have to do a little research. It depends on what you were convicted of. Some are automatic ineligibilities. Others, which are much lesser crimes, are not. They don't lead to an automatic ineligibility. So we would need to see what the conviction was, and then try to parallel it to our legal system.
I think how it's phrased is. I think how it's phrased is crimes of moral turpitude.
That's one of them. Yes. If it's a crime of moral turpitude, and there's a long list of those, if it is a crime of moral turpitude, or if it's a bigger crime, in general, we have a distinction between a misdemeanor and a felony in U.S. law. And in general, again, most misdemeanors would not be crimes of moral turpitude, but felonies would.
Yeah.
So it's complicated. We'd have to do some research. We'd have to see the documentation. So there's no one size fits all answer to that.
Right. So let me give an example.
The best thing to do is just don't commit the crime.
Right. So let me give an example then. Prior to, only recently, Trinidad and Tobago would have decriminalized certain amounts of marijuana, right? So, and a lot of the young people would have been charged in the past with having one joint of marijuana, which is now not a criminal offense. How would you treat with a matter like that if someone comes before you with that type of charge in the past that is no longer a criminal charge now?
Well, again, it's complicated. Have those cases been removed from the record because of the decriminalization, or are they still considered to be criminal convictions?
Only 49.
Part of it. And then also, drug use can also be an ineligibility. So depending on how recent it is. So we may ask the person to go visit a physician. It depends. Every case is a little bit different. These are cases that we spend a lot of time on and make sure that we follow the U.S. immigration law.
Let me ask you a question when it comes to expediting getting a visa. I know someone that was supposed to go to a conference. The company paid a lot of money for him to go to this conference, but 2.5 weeks before, he had a family emergency and could not go. His second in command decided to send his second in command. He had a passport, but he didn't have a visa. And they put in an application to expedite and so on. Of course, the long and short of the story is that he didn't get a visa in time. And then he just had 2.5 weeks to get a visa. How long does it really take to expedite a visa?
Well, I mean, we grant expedited appointments for some basic reasons, family emergencies, marriages, funerals, family members in hospitals, and important business travel as well. But still, the process can take a few days. And we never know, if everything goes quickly, we can do it in a couple of days, but it may take a little bit longer in some other cases. And one thing I did want to make sure that I had a chance to mention is that the registration for the 2026 diversity visa is coming up in a couple of days. It starts on October. Let me make sure I get the right date here. On October 2nd, and it lasts through November 5th. And this is an opportunity for people to apply to get a visa to immigrate, live and work in the United States. The diversity visa program, we grant 55,000 people the right to immigrate every year. So the process, if you're interested, the process starts on the registration process starts on October 2nd, and you can find out more information about that if you go to travel.state.gov. And travel.state.gov. It's a great website by the State Department. It has tons of information about traveling and living and being in different countries. And you search for a diversity visa.
Two questions based on that
program, and we really encourage people to, if you do want to immigrate, to look into applying.
One, what are the conditions that someone who may be wanting to option the diversity visa needs to consider before applying? Because very often people apply for it and do not realize there's serious conditionalities attached to it. If you are successful, you're required to move within a certain time, and I think stay for a particular length of time because you've applied to immigrate. And two, does registration for that, if you are unsuccessful, affect future applications for non-residential visas?
No, it doesn't. No, I mean, we have so many people register for the diversity visa, and it shows that, that yes, you might want to, one of your dreams might be to one day live and work in the United States, but it shows that you're trying to do it the correct way, through the proper channels. A couple of facts about registering: it's free, and you can do it yourself. Again, there are services that are out there, but it's better to apply yourself and to keep track of the whole program yourself, because there's a lot of scams around our diversity visa. Unfortunately, there's a lot of people that will send out emails saying you've won the diversity visa. You just have to send $800 to this address, and that's not how it works. It's free to register. You can only register once. You do have to have either a high school education or a couple of years at work in certain professions. All the information is on the website. But never believe anybody. You will never get an email saying that you've won and send money. What you'll do is you'll get a number, and then next summer, when they announce the people that are moving on to the interview phase, you'll go into the website with that number and check the status of your case. So any email that you ever might receive saying that you've won the diversity visa is a scam.
Mike, what are some of the reasons why the U.S. would revoke a visa?
There's a lot of different reasons. It's improper use of the visa. Somebody stays too long. Somebody commits a crime in the United States. Anything that shows that the visa has not been properly used. A number of times the revocations are what we call prudential revocations, and they mean that What it means is you've got to come back, or if you're outside of the country, you've got to apply again. And then we'll have a chance to look more carefully at your case. It doesn't automatically mean that, you've done something horrible. In some cases it does if you have, but in a lot of other cases, it's just that we want to take a second look. We want you to come in and apply again.
Would it be automatic then if you've lost your passport with a visa, a valid visa in it, that you would automatically get the visa again?
Not automatic, but if you properly use the visa, if you haven't done or if your situation here in Trinidad hasn't taken a real bad turn for the worse, it's very, very likely your situation will be the same, and you've traveled well. Then yes, you would qualify again.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. So of course we've covered the tourist visa appointments that shortened significantly the time to receive.
And please, take advantage of that. Come in and apply now. We're going to do our best to keep those wait times short, but you never know. So this is a great time to apply.
Someone is asking what a student in nursing school needs to apply for in terms of a visa.
To go and study nursing in the United States.
I guess study. Yeah.
That would be the student visa. That's a different process. You'd need to apply to a nursing school in the United States and be accepted, and then they would send you a document called an I-20. And once you have that I-20 document, then the process is very similar, except for when you're filling out the application form, you say you're applying for a student visa.
No, the person is saying that she is in school here, but I guess looking to get is it a visitor's visa, Aries born? And while she's typing that, someone else is asking, does a lost expired visa create a problem?
No. If you've lost 3 visas in the last 5 years, yes, that could be a problem. But everybody, we understand people lose passports, lose a visa. If an expired visa, that just means you had a visa before. So that's certainly not a problem. But for the tourist, for the B1, B2, which is the basic tourist business visa, it's the process we've already talked about it, regardless of whether you're in a nursing, you're going to training for nursing here or any other profession.
Well, she's saying she's a full-time nursing student here, so I'm presuming that she's applying for a visitor's visa, which is a normal visitor's visa process.
Right, it would be the same process that we talked about.
What if you had a visa, but it expired before you had the opportunity to travel due to changing circumstances? Does that affect your eligibility or potential for getting a new visa?
The fact that you didn't travel on your old visa? No, it doesn't. We'll ask you a question. Most of the visas that we give are 10 years, so you do have a lot of time to travel. But if you have a valid reason for, oh yes, I applied for the visa and I got it, but then this happened.
So, but don't they still do one entry 1 year or something like that?
Well, there are times when we will give a shorter visa. There are times when people are going for a specific purpose. Sometimes maybe a sports team or a school group or something like that, where we will issue a shorter visa that could be 1 entry, it could be 2 entries, it could be for 6 months. But that doesn't happen that often. In almost every case, we give the multi-entry 10 years.
I'm glad you mentioned that. What about, because Trinidad and Tobago is a very rich cultural country. So very often there are groups, sporting groups and cultural groups who apply en masse. Is that process the same? And what are the eligibility criteria for those circumstances? Because a lot of groups in Trinidad and Tobago, music groups, arts and culture groups, seek to travel to the U.S. for one exchange programs and or to perform. Are there different circumstances under which someone should apply for those visas?
Yes, there are. And, we are working with a lot of our contacts in the Ministry of Culture and Foreign Affairs. We just reached out to the National Carnival Commission, and we're trying to set up a meeting with them to explain some of the rules about performing in the United States. But there, with very few exceptions, if you're going to be paid to perform, then you need a P visa or an O visa. You need a visa that requires a petition. And if you're a professional performer, if you're normally paid to perform here in Trinidad, then unless you're going on an exchange program sponsored by the Trinidad government, and the performance in the United States is for a non-paying audience, then you do need a performer visa. However, if it's an amateur group and you're not going to be paid in the United States, except for maybe expenses, then it is possible to do it on a regular B1, B2 visa. And what I would encourage the groups that want to do that is just get this organized on time. The issue we often see is these end up, they ask for expedites.
We want to leave next week, Monday.
2 days, 3 days, and it's not organized that well. They don't, the band members don't know exactly where they're playing or what the audience is like. So, try to get all this arranged as early as you can, and make sure that everybody that interviews is fully informed about the situation, where you're performing, whether you're being paid, whether the audience is paying.
I'm glad you brought up that.
All those things.
This might seem like a really basic question, Mike, but what does the U.S. Embassy consider work in the U.S.? It sounds like a very basic question, but what comes under the category where you have to apply for a visa to work in the U.S.? Are there strict parameters within which it's considered work?
Well, if you are receiving money in the United States, there are a couple of small exceptions, but if you're receiving money in the United States, that's working, and you need a work visa, some kind of work visa or performer visa. Now, business, if you're going to set up a business deal, but your company's in Trinidad and your salary's coming from Trinidad, you're just going there to buy products to ship back to Trinidad, or to have meetings with another company, that's a business visa. That's a B1. So you can do that on the B1, B2, the business tourism.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, if you're going to earn money that's paid in the United States
from a U.S. source.
From a U.S. source, yes.
Okay, understood.
Yeah.
But I'm sure there are a lot of people that have a visitor's visa that will just go up there and conduct their business and come down. Is there any which way you'd know if they're conducting business and receiving money?
Well, conducting business is different from working. I mean, conducting business is setting something up for your company here, setting up some kind of importation or an agreement with a U.S. company. But the company is here in Trinidad, and any money that you're earning is coming from outside of the United States.
Yeah. Mike, if I'm not mistaken, one of your questions refers to politically exposed people, PEPs. How do you generally treat with someone who's politically exposed?
I'm not familiar with that. I'm not sure that's politically exposed.
Never seen that yet.
Before. So I'm not sure. That's not in one of our questions.
It's not part of your questioning.
No.
Okay.
You're mixing up the banks here, Wendell.
Yeah. and quickly for me, Mike, what is the approximate wait time presently for a visitor's visa?
The wait time right now is about 11 or 12 days.
Okay, less than 2 weeks.
And it goes, and it got down to like 3 days a couple of weeks ago, and it varies. It varies by week, but our goal is to keep it within a few weeks, and hopefully it'll stay that way.
Following the interview, is it that I know some people are immediately told you approve, and some people will be told in some hours? Is there a general wait time for approval if you're not told immediately that you've been granted the visa at the interview counter or online?
Just about everybody gets told at the counter, but if not, then no, it can depend. Sometimes we're waiting on you to send us a document. Sometimes we're waiting on one of our systems to give us an answer. So it can depend, and unfortunately, there are a few cases where you may have to wait a while before you get a final answer.
All right.
I thought once your passport is kept, you're approved.
Well, if we keep your passport, yeah. But if there is going to be, if we think the process is going to take more than a couple of days, we'll give you back your passport, and then we'll contact you when the final decision is made and ask you to send it in.
Oh, okay. Well, I've never heard of an instant like that.
It doesn't happen very often. I mean, almost everybody is approved right at the window.
Right.
Okay. And can a company in the U.S. apply for a working visa on your behalf if they want to hire you?
Yes, they can. There are certain, there are certain regulations, but the company has to start that process. They have to get a petition approved by immigration in the United States. And then once the petition is approved, the person here will get notice of that, and they'll apply for one of our work visas and come in and talk to us.
Excellent. Michael, you have been so helpful this morning.
Yeah.
Very much.
Is there anything that you wanted to talk about that?
A lot of information.
No, we've hit just about everything. Just a reminder to our U.S. citizens, absentee voting is very important, and please re-register in our STEP system. And all the information, you can find it at the U.S. Embassy website, tt.usembassy.gov.
Thank you, Charlene.
I'm going to be a bit mischievous now, Michael. Don't answer this question. Do not answer this question. But maybe you all could do some training for other immigration centers.
That would be interesting. Are you speaking of some of our friendly other countries?
Yes, that's exactly what we're speaking
It's
about. Canada.
on a beautiful Friday morning.
It means how efficient your processes are.
Well,
and
we talk to them.
and how
We learn
limited.
from them, they learn from us.
And how
We
well
have a
you
good
explained
relationship.
everything this morning. I'm actually very impressed with him. That's why it's
Yes.
very helpful in terms of the
Yeah.
clarity with which you've provided the information that people are asking on the chat, and they're getting really clear, concise answers. That's very appreciated. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Oh, well,
And the
thank you for
lottery,
having me. I really appreciate
the
it.
lottery system starts on next week Wednesday, the 2nd of October, and runs till
2nd of
November.
October. November 5th. You can
November
register
5th.
for the diversity visa. Between October 2nd and November 5th.
Right.
I'll do it just for
And
you.
the website to vote on is what again?
FVAP.
FVAP.gov.
Right.
Right.
Yeah,
Okay.
so please visit.
Wonderful.
All right. Well,
Go eat
thank you
some-
very much.
Go eat some doubles now, Mike.
All right. I will do.
How long have you been?
I really appreciate
How long have
it.
you been in Trinidad, Mike?
About a year now. So
What do you?
yeah, starting to get a good feel for the place. Enjoying myself.
Yeah. What do you love about Trinidad?
I like Tobago. I've been there a few times. And one of my favorite places to go is the Bamboo Cathedral. I like to do that walk, a couple times a month. I get there very early on Sunday morning, right when the sun is just about coming up, and it's a beautiful walk. It's a good workout too.
And then
What's your favorite local food?
My favorite, I like chow. I like that spicy mango or spicy pineapple. It's healthy and it's got some bite to it. So that's definitely my favorite.
All right. Mike, thanks, and have a great weekend.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you,
All right.
Charlene.
Great weekend.
There is a connection between government policy and law in the sense that all laws start as some type of government policy. So, for example, in Trinidad and Tobago, we would have had the recent national policy on persons with disabilities. And that policy talks in very strong terms about the need to both enact laws to provide for the human rights of persons with disabilities. It also talks about the need to amend laws that we have on our statute books right now that discriminate against persons with disabilities. So once that policy is adopted and approved by the cabinet, then the process of making it a law can begin. The difficulty with the policy remaining as a policy is two things. One, it's not enforceable. So it does not really give you any rights legally because it's just a policy, it's not a law. And the other thing is that policies can change over time. Policies can change over time as the needs of the government or the focus of the government itself changes. It can change if the government itself changes, so that it's not enough for us to say, well, we have a policy. We have to take that further step to make the policy a law, because that is what will give full protection for the human rights of persons with disabilities.
As well. Thank you all so much for inviting me here. It's great to be here.
All right. Wonderful. Thank you for joining us.
Yes, thank you for joining us. Mike, we can call you Mike, right?
Yes, please.
All right.
Thank you
Well,
for joining
I
us.
call my son Mikey, so but
I prefer Mike, not
you
Michael.
prefer Mike. All right, we'll do Mike then.
We'll do Mike.
Good morning, Mike. There are a
Good
couple of welcome changes coming up at the U.S. Embassy in Port of Spain. First of all, we like the fact that there'll be now online payments for tourist visas. Is that so? Let's hear more about that.
Yes, that's one of the things we're very excited about. You can still pay at Scotiabank if you like, but now, and most people do this now, is you can pay using a credit card, you can pay online. That makes the process of applying for a visa a little bit easier. And something else that we're very excited and proud of is, the wait time to get an interview has really gone down. We've done a lot of work these last couple of years. 2 years ago, around this time, it was about 340 days, due to the pandemic. But we've gotten that down to where it's just a couple of weeks now, and sometimes even less. So this is a great time to apply for a visa if you want to travel to the United States. The process shouldn't take you very long. I still think, do it as early as you can. But it'll take you a lot less time than it would before.
Mike, I know that the U.S. officials are not obligated to give an explanation or reason as to why they would have refused a visa. But I'll give you an example of someone who recently applied, a girl who recently applied, and she said she had all her documents, and she was asked two questions. One, is she married? She said no. Mind you, she lives common law with someone for the last 5 years. And then she was asked if she have any children, and she said no, and that was it. She was refused the visa. Explain what should someone do in an instant like that? Are they allowed to give an explanation as to that I am living common law with someone for more than 5 years? The person is a serving member of the TTPS, and they're steady and whatnot. Should that explanation be forthcoming?
Well, I can't speak about individual cases. I can only talk, generally about the visa interview. And before I give a more specific answer, I just want to make sure that people know that, by far the majority of our applicants are approved for the visas, about 75%. So 3 out of every 4 do get the visa. But basically what we're looking for in the interview is that you have a situation here in Trinidad or Tobago, ties that will compel you to return after a short visit, and that when you're in the United States temporarily, you'll properly use the visa. On a tourist visa, you can't work, you can't study. So those are the things that we're looking for. But as for the common law marriage, that's very common. And yes, please, do say I am in a common law marriage. We understand that that's a common situation here, and people can be, we have cases where people have been common law married for 20, 25 years. They have 3 or 4 kids, and, that's the same as a real marriage, as a regular marriage. So yes, that is a fact that you do. If you're asked that question, you certainly do want to give that answer.
Right. Okay. I appreciate that, because the person also owns a property here too. I neglected to mention that.
Yeah. I have another question too, because they asked me that this week. So let me throw it out to you. He's a 20-year-old chap. He is employed. He has nothing under his name. And he asked me, can he apply for a U.S. visa? And I said, yes, you can. I said, when are you going to travel? He said he does not know, but he just wants to get a U.S. visa in case his aunt wants him to come up. He doesn't have to go through the process. But then he asked me what he should carry to the embassy that they will need. I said, well, first you have to go online and make an appointment, and they'll contact you with a date and time and so on. And I also told him carry whatever documentation you have, such as, the only thing he would have would be a job letter and where he lives. Is there anything he needs? And can someone actually apply for a visa not knowing when they travel?
Yes, you can. But just, you have to give an honest answer to the interviewing officer and say, I don't have any immediate plans, but in the future I will be traveling, to visit my aunt or for another reason. And as for documentation, anything that you think that shows that, your ties, that you have a good situation here in Trinidad, you're welcome to bring that. But I will say in a lot of cases, the officer won't look at the documentation. It's really based on the interview, the questions and answers. And then sometimes, yes, we will ask for a job letter. And because the interview is the most important part. And I would like to say one thing about documentation is, unfortunately, we have seen an uptick in people with fake documents. We have seen people with false job letters, with fake bank statements. And this can, we've got a very good fraud team at the embassy, and we're getting very good at detecting that. So we really, it's not a good idea to do this. We've been working in partnership with the TTPS, and submitting fake documentation is against the law here in Trinidad. So if you try to do that, you might not only not get the visa and be ineligible for a visa for the rest of your life, but you might get in trouble with the local law enforcement as well. So, we do look at documents occasionally, but the most important part is the interview. And if you are going to bring documents, make sure that, everything on there is the truth. Don't try to pass something off.
Do not underestimate the long reach of Uncle Sam.
Well, it's our partners in the local law enforcement have been very helpful with this, because it's breaking local law to claim that you have to claim that you're a police officer when you're not, or to submit a fake a made up bank statement is against the law here. So they've been the TTPS has been very, very great in working with us on that.
Tell us about the relaunch of the STEP for STEP for American citizens.
Thank you. Thank you for asking that. That's very important. We do have a lot of American citizens here in Trinidad. Most of them are dual nationals. And the STEP program, the Smart Traveler Enrollment Program, is the method by which we can be in contact with them. We'll send them out messages with information. If they're, during the hurricane a few months ago, we sent out a lot of messages. And we're moving to a new STEP model, an upgraded, better program. But what it means is that people have to re-register with us. They need to go to step.state.gov. And even if you're registered now, in about 3 or 4 weeks, the registration will no longer be valid. So you've got to go there and register once again. And that way you'll get all the messages that we need to send out. And if we need to get in touch with you for some reason, we'll have your contact information.
So the new process is already active.
It is active, but for a couple more weeks, the old process, the old registration will still be valid. But around October 16th or 17th, I believe, it'll only the new people that have re-registered will be getting our messages. So it's very important for all of our U.S. citizens here to do that. And another reminder for U.S. citizens, you may have heard, we have an election coming up in about 6 weeks. Very important election. And so you can vote from Trinidad. You can do what's called an absentee ballot. But you really need to look into it if you haven't started the process yet. You go to fvap.gov, fvap.gov. And then, in the U.S. elections, every state has sort of a different process. So you'll go to that website and you'll put in the state that you live in, where you're resident, and it'll explain the process to you for being able to vote in the election from Trinidad. So I encourage all.
But you see, the whole point is that we now have a convention that says that a person with disability has all of the rights of anybody else. And the Trinidad and Tobago government, because it has signed up to that convention, is bound to create laws or to create legislation that ensures those rights. I think that's pretty wonderful. What do you think?
Oh, it's a pretty good idea.
Thank you so much, Eileen.
Thank you, Jean.
Let's look to the future.